Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto had a little divine intervention part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. It was party time in Konohagakure no Sato. Today was the 10th of October, the same day that the Yondaime Hokage saved the village from the destruction of the Kyuubi at the cost of his own life 7 years ago. Every year, in honor of the Yondaime, they have the Kyuubi festival. This is an official holiday where businesses close so everyone can just enjoy being around each other while partaking in the festivities. In the center of Konoha, where we find most of the festivities, we find a boy that looks to be about 7 years old with blonde hair, blue eyes, and 3 whisker-like birthmarks on each side of his face. For clothes, he wore a neon orange jumpsuit, navy blue shinobi sandals, and a pair of green goggles resting on his forehead. The young boy was sitting up against a building watching the people enjoy the festivities with a sad visage on his face. He sees the other young boys and girls with their parents, playing games, and eating delicious foods, but he just gets to sit there with tears in his eyes. If you weren't from Konoha, you would wonder, where are the boy's parents? Why is he so sad? Shouldn't he be enjoying himself with his family and friends? But if you were from Konoha, this boy didn't even exist. This boy was an orphan known as Uzumaki Naruto. The demon brat. The damn fox spawn. That thing. Etc. This boy is the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Yoko. The reason a good part of the village hates him for this is that normal civilians and a good number of the shinobi do not understand the intricacies of Fuinjutsu. They believe that he is Kyuubi in human form. Or they do understand Fuinjutsu and just want to hurt the fox through the boy. For this reason, the young boy was kicked out of the orphanage at the age of 6. The reason being that the matron did not want to see the other young kids become corrupted by the demon. Life on the streets is hard. With there being so many people in the village, there were numerous homeless people in Konoha. That being said, there were food kitchens and places for the homeless to stay, but not for the Kyuubi. They didn't let him in the kitchens or the shelters. Stores, restaurants, and food stands didn't allow him entry. People ignored him. He was not only denied the love of a parent due to being an orphan, he was also denied companionship from almost anyone. Most of the population simply ignored him. Not just ignored though. The people refused to acknowledge him at all. He simply didn't exist. Some of those people didn't ignore his existence, but would openly curse him. They would tell their children not to associate themselves with him. They didn't tell them why, of course, due to a law made by the Sandaime Hokage, but nevertheless they told the children that he was dangerous and that they were not to befriend him. Even at the academy which he started attending this year, he has no friends, due to all the kids listening to their parents. Most of the instructors seem to hate him also, denying him help, ignoring him when he asks questions he has, or changing up his grades so he would be at the bottom of the barrel for the year. There were 2 exceptions to this rule, however: the Ichiraku family. This father-daughter duo were the operators of a popular ramen stand in the middle of the village, and they were kind to the young boy. They let him have meals in their stand, sometimes for free. The daughter, who was about a year or 2 older than him, often played with him when her father didn't need help at the shop. Due to being the only girl around his age that would play with him, he had developed a small crush on her. The Sandaime Hokage himself? Not many would expect that such the fierce, cunning, and powerful man that was Sarutobi Hiruzen would care for some random orphan, especially one that many thought to be a demon in human flesh. Many thought of this man as a grandfather figure because of his kindness. This kindness was surely shown to one that almost no one else would show it to. The man had gone out of his way to give the boy a stipend each month to get food, if he could get it, and an apartment about a month ago after he discovered he was no longer in the orphanage. Even if it was a rundown shithole, it was a place that kept the rain and cool nights away. It was better than sleeping outside with no warmth at all. These 3 people are the only people that Naruto trusts. They have been the only lights in a world of darkness and neglect. They were precious to him, and he would do anything to keep them around. Not wanting to be reminded of being alone any longer, he decided to cut his losses on the night and just go to bed. Red light district of Konoha. Walking home with his hands jammed in the pockets of his jumpsuit bottoms, Naruto was slowly strolling toward his apartment, just looking around at the things around him. He would find the occasional girl that was an entertainer that would give him a small smile and wave at him. He didn't know what they did, 7 years old, and quite frankly, if he didn't know or was older he wouldn't care. It was some form of affection to an affection-starved person. Thus, the little blonde just put on a big smile and waved back. He eventually made it to the cheap complex that he stayed at. He walked up to his apartment, which was on the 2nd floor of the small, cheap complex. When he got to the door, he fished out a key from one of the pockets of his jumpsuit. He unlocked his door and opened it. "I'm home," he said as he walked in, only to meet the silence of the empty residence. It was a rather small apartment, 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom and a small kitchenette that was separated from the main living room by a small bar. He had a couch, a small TV, and a 2-person dining table on the other side of the bar. His room only contained a cheap futon for a bed, a nightstand, and a dresser. Like I said, it was a shithole, but it got the job done. He walked behind the bar, opened one of the cabinets, and grabbed a cup of instant ramen to have for his evening meal. After that he decided to just sleep for the night, as he had nothing else to do. He did his usual night routine and got into his bed. He turned off the light and closed his eyes. He was instantly pulled into a deep sleep, unaware of what exactly was about to happen. Naruto's mindscape. Naruto opened his eyes to find that he was laying down in the middle of a white room. Was it a room? He didn't see any walls or any end to the white space. What the hell? He thought as he sat up and noticed what he was wearing. He was dressed better than he had ever been in his life. He looked down to see himself barefooted and fitted in a pure white yukata with a pure white sash around his waist. Okay, this is weird. First the room thing, now these clothes. What in Kami's name is going on here? He thought. I could answer that for you, Naruto-kun, said a voice that was the most beautiful thing he had ever heard. He turned around to see a woman behind him a few feet away. The melodic voice came from a woman with milky skin and long, luscious, dark blue hair that was tucked behind her ears and went down her back to stop just below her shoulder blades. She was also barefoot, but instead of a white yukata, she wore a pure white kimono with gold trim around her athletic frame that all women would turn green from jealousy of. She also had a golden obi tied around her waist. She had a heart-shaped face, a small nose, and small pink lips. But the feature that drew his attention were her eyes. Her eyes were pure white. You wouldn't even notice she had pupils if it wasn't for the faint outline of them. The thing that drew his attention was that they exuded a presence of pure power and authority, while also showing kindness and compassion. He felt so small and insignificant, but at the same time he felt as if he didn't want to be near anyone else. She moved toward him with the utmost poise and grace. She walked up to him and kneeled down, while placing a hand on his cheek affectionately. She smiled at him sweetly and said, "Don't be afraid, my child. I am not here to harm you." Who are you? He asked fearfully. I am the one you people call Kami. I am who created the world and make sure it stays going, she replied, amazed and slightly doubtful at being in the presence of the one who basically made everything he managed to get out tentatively. Where am I? We are in your mind, young one. You could call it your mindscape. It is a place in your subconscious that you can control to your whim. Naruto wasn't buying it, and Kami could tell by the look on his face. Here. Think about something to appear and it will. He closed his eyes and thought about a steaming bowl of miso ramen. Poof, when he looked down next to him, he saw the delicious noodles of heaven. Amazed, he looked back at the goddess. He looked back at the bowl and dug in as she began to speak. Believe me now? She asked with mirth in her eyes. Other than showing you how to get ramen to appear in your mind, I called you here for something slightly bigger. I have brought you here because I have chosen you to be the one to save the world from a great terror. You will be a beacon of shining light in the darkness of the world. As that beacon, you will bring the world out of its darkness. How can I do that? The people hate me and call me a demon. How could I do something that good if I did something so bad that people hate me? He questioned with tears starting to form. Seeing this, the goddess scooped him up into her arms in a gentle hug. He blushed a bit at the close proximity to her but unconsciously moved further into the hug. He felt all warm and fuzzy in his chest. It was kind of weird, but he liked it. Don't worry, Naruto-kun. You are not a demon as they say you are. You are a normal human boy like everyone else your age. And believe it or not, you did nothing wrong. They are stricken with grief over all they lost in the Kyuubi attack so long ago that they are blaming it all on you. Now don't get me wrong, you did nothing to warrant all this hate, and it is not right that you do this. But they do not understand what exactly happened that night. Well then, what happened that night? He asked, a bit miffed that all this was happening for no reason at all. Well, the Kyuubi is a being made out of chakra and given a form and a consciousness. As such, it cannot be killed like most think the Yondaime did. Do you know what a seal and Fuinjutsu is, Naruto-kun? She asked at the end. Is it the paper that the old man puts all the stuff he uses in? He answered, sort of. Fuinjutsu is a way to do many things through writing seals on many things with ink. Apply the necessary chakra and you have the function of the seal that you desire. Most people like the Hokage, as per your example, use them for storing things in scrolls. But you can also do so much more. But one of the things that is sealed away periodically is a bijou, like the Kyuubi. But I don't understand what the Kyuubi has to do with any of this. It's dead, Naruto said as he cut her off. At this she grew a tick mark. It is not polite to interrupt, Naruto-kun. Now, as I was saying before you cut me off, the Kyuubi isn't dead, as I said before. It has to be sealed away. And things as powerful as the Kyuubi can only be sealed in children. Naruto's tears returned and he buried his face into her frame as he realized what this meant. So I am a demon. He sobbed out into Kami's shoulder. She tightened her grip around him and calmed him down by whispering soothing things into his ear. He eventually snuggled into her embrace and calmed down as she continued, Don't cry, my child. You are not a demon. Does a scroll become a kunai because you store one away in it? No. You are special, Naruto-kun. You know what sorrow is and you know what it is like to want to protect others. That is why I have chosen you to save the world from its darkness. But how can I do that if no one is willing to help me but the old man, Ichiraku, and I am Chan? He asked. Don't you know who I am, Naruto-kun? I am the one who has called you to do this and you don't think I will help you along the way? I plan to make you the most powerful shinobi that the world has ever seen, maybe even more so than the Rikudo Sannin. To do so, I will give you several gifts along the way. She said, the first will be to be a change to your body. You will be health, fit, and will have extreme stamina. Even though you are only able to buy instant ramen at the moment, I will modify your body so that it will not stunt your growth. For as you are now, you will be short and have baby fat when you start your shinobi career. Next, I will give you a sharp, analyzing mind. This is arguably the greatest gift I will give you. It may not seem as powerful as the others, but it is what will get you out of more situations than you could count. The third thing I will give you is a mastery over your affinity. You are attuned to the element of wind. You have heard stories of how great the Nidaime Hokage was with his mastery over water, but I will give you an even greater mastery over wind. You will be so good with this element, that with training, you could be able to pull off sub-elements with this. Usually you could only do that if you had a Kekkai Genkai, but I will allow you to have access through them if you show me great dedication in your training. You will have to work with this mastery, but it will come quickly and easily if you put in the right amount of effort. The last gift I will give to you is a surprise. You are not ready for this gift yet. I will bestow it upon you at a time when you are in need. She said with a soft smile. Kami-chan? He said, trying to get her attention. Yes, my child. Can I tell the old man, and I am Chan, about this? Well, I think it would be wise to tell the Hokage about it, since he should be able to train you or help you train. But I would advise against telling your little friend at the ramen stand for now. You might tell her in the future, but I would advise against you doing it at this time. Now it is time that you wake up and get ready for the academy, Naruto-kun. It is morning time now, and you have some learning to do, she said with a sweet smile. Naruto started to panic when he heard this. She was so nice to him, and now she was leaving him all alone again. She was so nice to him. He didn't want to be alone. He liked being hugged like this. He wanted her to stay. What is he going to do now? The goddess saw the look of panic and fear appear on his face. She frowned as she pushed him away a bit to look into his eyes as she asked, What is the matter, my child? He diverted his eyes and mumbled something. What was that, Naruto-kun? Do you have tea to leave? He said almost so softly that she almost didn't hear him again. He didn't want to be alone again. It felt like he finally had a mother to love him like all the other kids did, and it felt really good. He didn't want to lose the warm feeling in his chest when she hugged him. Unfortunately, I do. I have to keep running the world, and you have to attend the academy. When he heard this, his heart dropped. He lost the warm feeling and felt he really didn't feel anything. It was like his insides went numb. Actually, it wasn't so numb. It hurt. He thought he had finally found someone that was like a mother, only to have her ripped away. It really did hurt. But I think I could visit you every now and then, she said. Hold the phone. A little sliver of hope started to show on his face. I think I could be able to visit a couple times a week and on your birthdays if you are a good boy. Maybe I could even spare a few extra nights a week if you are especially diligent in your training. She finished with a small smile. She could tell he needed someone to fill the parental void and show him some love. Who better to do it than the one who knows everything and made everything? The young blonde was ecstatic. Overjoyed. Elated. You could not even describe how happy he was with words, honestly. He finally had something akin to a parent. She was kind to him. She showed him affection. She gave him gifts. And she wasn't leaving. For good anyway. He was broken from his thoughts when she began to speak. I really would like to stay, but I have to get back to heaven. And you, little savior, need to wake up, she said with a smile as she tapped him on the nose. He hugged her one last time for the night as she stood up. Okay. I hope you come back soon, Ka-chan. When the goddess heard what the young boy in her arm called her eyes widened. She then smiled and hugged him a little tighter. Don't you worry, I will come back soon. Even sooner if you train hard, my little Naruto-chan. As soon as he heard her say that, he was gently expelled from his mindscape. Naruto's room the next morning. Naruto's eyes fluttered open as he was expelled from the mindscape. He remembered the time with his new surrogate mother, but then his new mind kicked in, overanalyzing things. Was it all a dream? Was he really special? Did he really have a new mom just like all the other kids? He thought about this when he went into his kitchen to get some instant ramen for breakfast. He got it out and was heating it up when he saw a piece of paper on the other side of the counter. He went over to it and picked it up. It was a note. He read aloud to the empty apartment what was written on it. Naruto-chan, I knew your mind would kick in and wonder if last night was real. This note should answer that we'll need to talk to the Hokage today. Tell him you know of your tenant, and to send all others out of the room. He will be able to help you in your training. If he doesn't believe you, then tell him to expect a change in prophecy from the elder Gama Sannin. Do well in your studies and train hard. See you soon, my little Naruto-chan, Ka-chan. After being thoroughly reassured that it all was real, he made his way through his morning routine and was out the door roughly 20 minutes before class started. Outside the Hokage Tower, that afternoon, class was normal today. Nothing really happened that normally didn't, except Naruto tried to pay attention just a little bit harder than normal. Just a few history lectures and he was set for the day. Now came the real task of the day. Talking to the old man about what happened. Even though the old man was one of the people who was friendly to him, he didn't think for 1 second that the man would buy the story that he had met Kami and that he was now on track to be as strong as the Rikudo Sannin. He went up to the top floor of the Hokage tower and went up to the secretary. He asked her if he could talk to the Hokage. She was about to slap the demon across the face and tell him that the Hokage didn't have time for the likes of demons, when she heard a door open, revealing the Hokage. Despite his age and physical limitations, he was not the professor/shinobi no Kami for nothing. His mental perception and sensor abilities had stayed sharp, so he was easily able to sense the young boy arriving at his office. "Hello, Naruto-kun. Why don't you come inside?" the old man said with an inviting smile on his face. Once they got inside the office, the old geezer sat down behind his office, while Naruto sat on the portable couch in front of the desk. After they got settled in, the aged Kage cleared his throat and began speaking. "So Naruto-kun, what can I help you with today?" With an uneasy look on his face, Naruto asked if he could send out all of the other people in the office. Hiruzen definitely liked the look on his face in conjunction with the request. "Why would I need to do that, lad? It's about my tenant. A and B, you leave us." As he said this, 4 figures phased into sight in 4 spots in the room. "Hi, Hokage-sama." And with that they phased out as quickly as they came in. Hiruzen made sure to get the first question. "Now Naruto-kun, what do you mean it's about your tenant?" the young blonde sighed. "I know about the Kyuubi and how Yandame-sama sealed it into me on the day I was born." The elderly shinobi was floored. "I am not mad at you for not telling me, Gigi. I'm sure that you didn't tell me for a reason, and that you would have eventually told me, right?" The man was dumbfounded at this even more. How could his young surrogate grandson have such maturity and insight? Was this the same loud, little, Hokage aspiring boy? He eventually broke himself out of his thoughts to ask some questions. "So Naruto-kun, how did you come by this information? And why are you so calm about this? Usually you would have yelled and screamed about me keeping something like this from you if your old personality would have dictated your actions." Naruto then began telling the old man the tale of what happened to him in his sleep. As the story went on, the old man was getting more and more skeptical about his experience with the goddess that created all life. That this goddess had become a mother figure to a small orphan boy and that she had given him gifts that would make him the strongest shinobi the world would ever see. "I know this hard to believe it, Gigi, but my new mindset and maturity should prove it to you. Naruto-kun, I understand that you have matured much overnight, but this is just too much to believe. I think you just had a really realistic dream, my boy," he said as he pondered what this dream could mean. He was again interrupted from his thoughts by the young blonde in front of him. "Kaa-chan did give me one last piece of proof if you did doubt what happened." "Well, what would that be, Naruto-kun?" She said that the prophecy from the elder Gama Sannin would change. The old shinobi once again raised his eyebrow. What a bold prediction from such a small chi. Poof! After the small explosion of smoke, there was revealed to be 2 figures. One was a tall man that stood about 6 feet 4 inches with white hair and tied back in a spiky ponytail. On his head was a Hittite with the kanji 4 oil. The second was a small, green toad with grayish hair and a purple cloak around his body from the neck down. These are 2 of the Gama Sannin, Jiraiya of the Sannin and Fukusaku, head of the Gama summoning clan. Jiraiya was the first to speak as he stepped forward, not noticing the small child in the room being hyper-focused on the oddity that just occurred. "Sensei, the prophecy has changed." The Hokage's jaw literally hit the floor and the room was soon so silent, you could hear a pin drop. "What did you just say?" asked the Hokage quietly after a few second-long pause. His student started to reply. "I said that I heard what you said," he snapped as he turned to Fukusaku. "Is this true, Fukusaku-sama?" the old toad spoke up. "Yes, it is quite true what Jiraiya-chan said." They were all startled when they saw the youngest person in the room point his finger at Sarutobi and yell out, "I told you, Gigi. I told you what Kaa-chan said to me was true." "I definitely believe you now, Naruto-kun. I think I will be able to help out with this training of yours," the old Kage said, smiling at what this young boy could accomplish with the right training. Jiraiya took a look at the 7-year-old after hearing his name. His eyes widened as it clicked who the kid was. "Wait a minute. Sensei, did you say that this boy is name?" "Yes, Jiraiya-kun. This is Uzumaki Naruto. And wait until you hear the story of what happened and what will happen." And so the Hokage went on for about an hour with the details of what Naruto described to him, with the young boy confirming what went on during his time in the mindscape. Needless to say that Jiraiya was dumbfounded at the revelations. Who wouldn't be? Kami basically adopted this kid and is making him the strongest being ever? "So, old man, are you going to start my training?" Naruto asked. "Well, Naruto-kun, I am not the one that will be training you," said the elderly Sarutobi. Naruto started to freak out when he heard this. "Then how am I going to get super strong?" he asked while frantically flailing his arms around. That's when Jiraiya stepped forward and put his hand on his godson's shoulder. "That is where I come in, Gaki. I will be the one who will train you from here on out. If what I'm thinking the same thing as Sensei over there, why would you train me? I want special Hokage training," exclaimed Naruto. "Well, unless you want to pass up on the Yandame's training," then he left it hanging, knowing full well from the Sandame of Naruto's hero. "I can train like the Yandame did." "How?" "Well, considering that I trained the Yandame personally, I think I could manage to get you just as strong, don't you think? Jiraiya said with a slight smirk. Yada! I'll be stronger than the yandame! Shouted the excited blonde. The shouting ended when Jiraiya smacked him across the back of the head. Easy, Gaki. Don't get too worked up. Now, if you think that you are able to handle some of my super special Hokage training, then go to Training Ground 7 tomorrow afternoon. If you are not there as soon as the academy is over, then I will deem you unfit for my little program. Naruto was fervently nodding at this. Alright then, go get some rest before tomorrow then, Gaki. Trust me, you will need it. Again Naruto nodded and headed straight to his apartment to rest up for tomorrow, despite it only being around 5 o'clock. After he was gone, Jiraiya turned his old sensei. He's so much like them. He looks like a carbon copy of Minato, and his personality screams Kushina. He said with a small smile. The aged Kage nodded with a small smile of his own. Yes, he is, isn't he? Now on the next subject, his face gained a serious look to it. How are you going to go about breaking your relationship to him? Jiraiya's brow furrowed in thought as he brought his hand up to cup his chin. I don't know, sensei. I've been gone from his life for 7 years. I'm here now, and it will stay that way. I think I will break it to him when I tell him about his parents. Hopefully he will be able to understand my position by then, but that would be a few years from now. At least I'll be a constant in his life from this point on. Oh? And what of the spy network, Jiraiya-kun? The older of the two asked. How will you keep up with your duties if you are stuck here with your godson? Not that I necessarily disagree with your decision, but the spy network is crucial to our security as a nation. Jiraiya came up with a more confident look with this question. That's easy, sensei. I can mainly use my summons to gain the intel, they help me out anyway. I can also get away from time to time to meet some of my higher profile contacts, as well as do some research for my books then too. He finished with a lecherous grin and a drop of blood coming out of his nose. Hiruzen gained the same visage as his student as he thought of the sage's novels. He then pulled it together, wiped his bloody nose with his sleeve, and cleared his throat. As much I would love to discuss your newest novel, I really should be getting back to this ever-growing mountain of paperwork. Jiraiya nodded. Alright, sensei. I'll come by tomorrow after our little training session. And with that he opened the window and jumped out. Why doesn't he just use the damn door? He thought as his secretary brought in another stack of papers as tall as his desk. Nuh! He yelled as he got to looking at the stacks of paper that were more intimidating than Uchiha Madara himself. Training Ground 7. We now find our young hero panting on the ground waiting for the old white-haired man to come and test him. He had just sprinted out of class as soon as Ichiraku-sensei said they were dismissed. He was broken from his thoughts as a cloud of smoke came into existence with the poof. As the smoke cleared he saw the tall, white-haired guy he was waiting on. Alright, Gaki, come over here and we'll introduce ourselves to each other. The tall man said as he sat down with his back against a large tree. The young blonde sat down right in front of Jiraiya Indian style and waited for the man to start speaking. So, Gaki, why don't you introduce yourself and I'll do the same afterwards? What do you want me to say? Asked Naruto. Just some basic stuff. Likes, dislikes, dreams? Stuff like that. Well, my name is Uzumaki Naruto. I like ramen, Gigi, Kachan, and anything that is orange. I dislike people that make fun of ramen and orange and the people that act like I'm not there. I want to be the strongest shinobi and Hokage ever, so I can protect my precious people and so that Kachan will be proud of me. He finished with his patent-pending shit-eating fox grin. Jiraiya, when he heard the part of the kid's mom, was confused, but then it hit him that he was talking about Kami, who had apparently taken a shine to the kid. Well, Gaki, those are some good goals. Well, I guess I should tell you a bit about myself. He disappeared. Poof, he appeared with a shit-eating grin of his own, while on what the hell? Jiraiya was posing while on top of a giant orange toad. I am the one men wish to be. The one the ladies wish to be with. The great, the gallant, Toad Sannin of Myobokuzin. Jiraiya of the Sannin. So Gaki, you impressed? Asked the perverted sage with a smug look. Why are you on top of a giant frog? Jiraiya fell off the toad right onto his face with a giant sweat drop on his forehead as the toad dispelled. He jumped up immediately. It's a toad, GKI. He screamed. I guess if you don't think much of them, I won't allow you to summon them or train you at all. He left it hanging and turned his back to the blonde. No! Wait! Naruto shouted back at Jiraiya. And I didn't say I didn't like them. I just asked why you were on top of such a big one. He screamed, waving his arms around frantically. Jiraiya smirked. He turned around with a serious look on his face. Are you sure that you don't think that they are all gross and weak? That's what it looked like when you looked at me on top, Gaminasa-san. I swear I think that they are awesome. Did you see how big he was? Plus he's orange. The blonde exclaimed. Jiraiya took an analyzing look at the boy, then burst out laughing. Naruto just stood there and was wondering what in Kachan's name is going on. Oh, you should have seen the look on your face, he said, wiping a tear from his eye. I was just kidding, Gaki. I'm still gonna train you. Wait, you are training me? No test? Asked the perplexed 8-year-old. Nah. I thought about it a little bit, but I figured I wouldn't be able to get anything out of a kid that just started the academy not even a few months ago. You barely know how to throw a shuriken or kunai. How would you possibly stand up to any test I could give you? So I thought starting with a blank slate and building you up the way you should be is the way to go," explained the white-haired sage. "So we are starting training today?" asked Naruto hopefully. "You're damn right we are, kid. First I am going to explain to you the basics of being a shinobi. Then we will decide what kind of shinobi you want to be, like what aspect of being a shinobi you will specialize in. You will be well versed in all aspects, being a student of mine, but you will decide what you want to be the best in. Then after that we will get you started on your physical training, since you said that Kami-sama gave you a body that will allow you to do so. Then to conclude the day, we will be moving you into my house. That way I can get you the right kinds of food, clothing, other things you wouldn't have had living on your own," outlined Jiraiya. When he looked at the child, he had tears in his eyes. "Oi Gaki? What's the mat OMPH?" He didn't get to finish as a little blonde bullet crashed into his stomach, wrapping the sage in a hug, making Jiraiya fall on his ass. Thank you. And no one has ever been so nice to me except for Ka-chan," the boy said in a muffled voice due to his face being buried in Jiraiya's stomach. Jiraiya wrapped his arms around his godson. He didn't realize that the kid's life was this deprived of being treated as a normal kid until this moment. The guilt of not being there for his own godson crashed down on him at this moment. He soon crushed that feeling and a determined look in his eyes. "Don't worry, Naruto, it won't be like that anymore if I have anything to say about it," he thought. They sat there until the blonde was calmed down. Jiraiya gently set Naruto on the ground in front of him. "Alright then, let's get started with the shinobi explanation part. There are things about being a shinobi that we don't like doing. You need to know this before you start so you don't find that you don't want to do this anymore in the middle of a mission. That could get you, your team, and or your client killed. You following me?" Jiraiya asked. Naruto nodded. "Okay, good. Now shinobi are people who are enlisted in service to their respective village. We are people that do things most people can't or won't do. We are able to use jutsu to spit fire and things like that, but we also do things we don't like. I'm not going to lie to you, Naruto. We lie, we steal, and we kill people. We don't do it because we like it, well, normal shinobi anyway, but we do it to protect our precious people and our village. Do you understand? Being a shinobi is a horrible thing, but some need to do it to protect the village. Now my question to you, do you want to be able to protect those precious to you, in exchange for being a shinobi?" Naruto looked away, thought about it. "I don't want to kill people. Ka-chan said I have to save the world. But she also said I would be the strongest shinobi ever. I guess that leaves me no choice." Jiraiya-sensei. The blonde getting said man's attention. I want to be a shinobi. I want to be able to protect my precious people and make Ka-chan proud," he said with a fire in his eyes. "Very well. You will from this point on be my apprentice, and I will be your master. You will answer to me and only me. You will do as I say and I will make you stronger than you could ever imagine in order to protect your precious people." "Hi, Jiraiya-sama," said Naruto. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow and flicked the boy on his forehead. "What the hell was that? You don't seem like the formal-type kid." "Call me sensei," said Jiraiya. "Now we get on to the part where we decide what kind of aspect you want to specialize in," he said. "There are many aspects that you could focus on. The 3 main facets of being a shinobi are what most specialize though, so we will go over those and 2 more that I think you would like. The first is taijutsu. This is the art of hand-to-hand combat. To specialize in this you will need to be at the top of the pyramid in your physical conditioning. You will need to be faster and stronger than almost any other shinobi. Your punches, kicks, and reactions will be faster, and you will be able to take almost every single shinobi in the world in a taijutsu match if you were to do this. But at the same most that choose this path are prone to falling into illusions or getting hit with ninjutsu. The next is genjutsu. This is the art of illusions. The 2 things you need for this are excellent chakra control, which with your already huge reserves will be a problem, and an insanely creative imagination, which you have judging by your pranks. Being a genjutsu specialist means that you can trap someone in an illusion with ease and be able to keep them in it long enough for you to get an edge. People that specialize in this are not typically good hand-to-hand fighters. It is very easy to beat one of these people if you are able to detect and break out of illusions easily. Honestly, my genjutsu sucks. If you choose this we will have to find you a tutor or another teacher altogether for it. The third path you could take would to be a ninjutsu specialist. This as well, ninjutsu means ninja technique. This is what I specialize in. This is using the elements, and what we call shape manipulation to turn it into jutsu, like a big fireball, or my summoning a toad. To do this, you will need decent chakra control. You are lucky, and I would say perfect for this role, as you have Jounin level chakra reserves as an 8-year-old. I would advise you to take this route, but you will choose what you want to do. Ninjutsu specialists aren't as good at hand-to-hand combat or illusions, but aren't just slouches at them either. You still with me? Naruto nodded. The 4th path I will offer to help you specialize in is Fuinjutsu. This is the art of sealing. You can do almost anything with a seal. He pulls a scroll from a pocket on his pants. See this scroll? He got a nod. See this kunai? Another nod. Watch this, he said as he channeled chakra to store the kunai in the scroll. This is the most common use of Fuinjutsu, which you have probably seen Sarutobi-sensei do. You know how the Kyuubi is sealed within you? His young charge once again nodded. That is arguably the most powerful of examples of the sealing arts. Fuinjutsu users are not very common anymore, but you are looking at one of the few Fuinjutsu masters you will see. I am the best seal user in the village, even better than Sarutobi-sensei. As he said this, Naruto's eyes went wide. I will teach you some about Fuinjutsu later regardless, but you can choose if you want to specialize in it. The last is Kenjutsu and Bukijutsu. This is the art of using swords and other weaponry. Like Taijutsu, you will need to have great speed and strength. You will be able to use almost any kind of sword or projectile. Like sitsis, katanas, throwing weapons, nagitanas, kusarigamas, and so much more. You won't be as good at ninjutsu or genjutsu, but your taijutsu will still be pretty good. Okay, so I know that was one long-ass explanation, but those are the main things that I will offer to teach you. Do you have any idea what you would like to do? He asked his now apprentice. Naruto cupped his chin and stroked his non-existent beard in thought. Well, I don't think I want to do taijutsu since I will be well-rounded anyway. And genjutsu sounds like it will leave me too vulnerable, and you said it will be harder anyway. I think I want to specialize in what you do. To get the best results from your training, I would need to do what you do. Ninjutsu sounds like a winner to me. Fuinjutsu and Kenjutsu both sound cool too, but since you said that I am almost built for ninjutsu, it sounds like that would be the best thing. I was hoping you would say that. I will be able to teach you almost anything you would need to know for ninjutsu. Plus there are so many things you can do with it to make it your own. Jiraiya then stood up and brushed himself off. He started walking into the clearing of the training field and motioned for Naruto to follow him. Alright Gaki, now it is time to start your physical conditioning. Even though you aren't going to be a taijutsu specialist, no student of mine will be any slouch in his condition. Now for a warm-up you will run 5 laps around the field, do 25 push-ups, 25 sit-ups, 25 pouches and kicks each on the training dummy here. He said as he motioned to said wooden dummy, and with that Naruto started on his little routine. After about 45 minutes, he was hunched over with his hands on his knees, panting and taking deep breaths. Kami, sensei. This sucks. I'm only 7, Tebeo. Too tired to catch the verbal tick. Yeah right, kid? That was just the warm-up. You get a 5-minute break before the real training starts. Jiraiya said with an evil smirk. 3 hours later, we find Naruto piggybacking on his master's back. They were on the way to Naruto's apartment to pack up his stuff in order to move it all to Jiraiya's place. They finally arrived after about 15 minutes of rooftop jumping. When they got there, Naruto got out and unlocked the door to his small one-bedroom apartment. When they got there, Naruto immediately went to the cupboard that was stocked with endless amounts of instant ramen. When Jiraiya saw this, his eyes bugged out of his head. Whoa there, Gaki. You are not going to eat any of that instant couple crap. Why not? Ramen is the food of the gods. Pretty sure Ka-chan eats it all the time, too. Heaven. Up on her throne, Kami was digging into a large bowl of shrimp ramen as she sneezed. The sneeze caused her to drop the bowl, making it shatter when it hit the ground. Damn it! She exclaimed as she made a broom, dustpan, and mop appear to clean up the mess while grumbling about having to make a new bowl. Naruto's apartment, Jiraiya sighed. It may be good every once in a while, but it isn't very nutritious. With the workout you just got, you need to get protein and you need to get rehydrated. You need something with a good amount of meat or fish in it, and you need lots of water or shinobi. Now let's get you all packed up and then we can get some of the good stuff on our way to my place. So they did just that. They spent another 20 minutes putting all his important stuff in scrolls and left the rest to whoever wanted the stuff. On the way they ate some curry rice with lots of beef and some lemon-lime shinobi. Once done they went on to Jiraiya's large 3-bedroom townhouse that was pretty close to the old man's office. By the time they were done unpacking and getting his room somewhat set up, it was dark and Naruto was exhausted. The second he was done he said goodnight to Jiraiya and crashed on his bed. Naruto's mindscape. Naruto opened his eyes and found the white, wall-less room that he was in last night. He got excited as he figured that meant he was able to see his Ka-chan again. He surveyed in front of himself, and when he didn't find anything looked around to see if he could find his new mother. When he had looked all around and wasn't able to find her, he looked down with a crestfallen look on his face and slumped. I guess she is too busy to spend time with me. I mean she kinda does run the world. Now why would you think that, my sweet Naruto? You shouldn't look so sad. You look so much better with a smile on that cute little whiskered face of yours. He heard as a pair of slender arms wrapped around his little frame. He immediately turned around and hugged the person with an elated look on his face. Ka-chan! You're here! You're really here! Exclaimed the excited 8-year-old. Of course I am. I said I would be back if you did as I asked you and you did. I wouldn't dare miss this when you have been such a good boy, my little Naruto. And so Naruto spent the rest of the night with the goddess that created the universe talking about his day and cuddling with his most precious person. Time skipped 1.5 years from the start of his training. We now find our young hero finishing up his kicks to the wooden training post. The year had done some good for the blonde Jinchuriki. He had grown to be one of the taller boys in his class, right behind Aburame Shino and Akimichi Chuji. Turns out when you eat some stuff other than ramen every day, you grow a good amount. Also, he had a little help with his Jinchuriki healing factor enhancing his growth along with his Kachan's advancements to his body. Speaking of the goddess, she still visited her adopted son about 3 times a week. She would do it randomly, but he enjoyed it nonetheless. Back to his growth, he had lost all baby fat and had grown a little muscle. Not much to show, but hey, he was freaking 9.5, 97, 98, 99, 100. Pant alright now, where is the pervert at now? I finished my warm-up. As time went on he had begun to begin his warm-up, which had increased whenever Jiraiya had deemed it necessary, right when he got to the training field instead of waiting on his master to say to begin. He had also learned of his master's books and research. Let's just say he was persuaded to dislike the habit courtesy of his Kachan. Shiver, his Kachan was scary when she got angry about his master's perving. She didn't seem too happy when she had to give him the talk either. Let's just say that it's a good thing that his sensei wasn't able to come into the mindscape. He made his way to the bathhouses and found his master using his favorite peeping hole to peer into the ladies' side of the bathhouse, while scribbling into his infamous notepad with a perverted leer and blood dripping from his nose. He walked up right behind Jiraiya and yelled, "Let's go, Iaro-sen, and we got some training to do." Ga! Jiraiya jumped and screamed as he banged his forehead against the outer wall of the bathhouse. He heard the lady screaming, "Get the pervert," so he grabbed his apprentice and made use of the Shunshin body flicker to appear in the middle of training ground 7. He then unceremoniously dropped his blonde charge onto his stomach, said boy, landing with a thud and an OMPH. "What have I told you about interrupting my research, Gaki?" asked Jiraiya with a slight scowl. "What have I told you about peeping during the time I'm supposed to be training, you damn pervert?" The sage's apprentice shot back with a slight scowl of his own. "If I've told you once, I've told you 1,000 times, brat. I'm not a pervert. I am a super pervert," said the sage, adopting the good guy pose with blood running from his nose and his eyes bugged out. "Sure you are, Ero-senin. Can we just get to today's training?" the blonde asked. During the year, they had exclusively worked on his physical conditioning and strength. He was now faster than most fresh Genin and about as strong as a seasoned Genin. They had not worked on anything other than his strength and speed, something that irked Naruto to no end. "You already did your warm-up, I assume?" asked the sage. "Yep. Did that while you were busy writing your stupid smut," jabbed Naruto. "It is not stupid, Gaki. You just haven't come to understand the beauty of the female body yet." Naruto looked at Jiraiya with a deadpan look. "I know what a beautiful female looks like, but Kachan would kill me if I ended up a pervert like you, whatever. But now onto your training for today. We will up your warm-up tomorrow to 40 laps, and 200 of everything else." Naruto's eyes bugged out of his head and gave a what? "Calm down, Gaki. I'm doing this because we will no longer be doing only physical conditioning and strength training. We will start your training in taijutsu style that I have chosen for you. In about a month we will start on the basic academy jutsu and a few others. But right now show me the katas for the academy style taijutsu." Naruto started to go through the katas that Mizuki-sensei had tutored him on personally during lunch, in order to help him be stronger than the others, mind you. As he was about halfway through with the katas, Jiraiya stopped him. "Gaki, if this is some kind of joke you need to stop. I want you to show me what you learned in the academy lessons. You are usually serious our training sessions, so get normal and let's go," said Jiraiya. Naruto looked at him with a confused face. "This is what I have been taught in the academy. Mizuki-sensei helps me personally during lunch on taijutsu days so I can be ahead of the competition." When Naruto looked up at his master, he got scared. Jiraiya was so pissed it wasn't funny, "That bastard," he muttered as he turned to his apprentice. "Naruto, he hasn't been teaching you right. You are off balance, overextending on every single one of your strikes, and leaving vital points wide open. You would be destroyed by any half-decent genin that is somewhat serious about what he does. Your helpful sensei is sabotaging you because you are a Jinchuriki." Naruto was shocked. Mizuki-sensei was always so nice to him, so was Ichiraku. He just thought that he was getting better by accepting the extra lessons. He was broken from his thoughts by his master as he put a hand on his shoulder. "Come on, we are going to see Sarutobi-sensei to look at the academy progress reports." And with that they shined to the Hokage tower, Hiruzen's office. Hiruzen was finishing up on his last stack of paperwork for the day as he heard a knock on the doors to his office. "Come in." Jiraiya walked in with Naruto right behind him. "Ah, Jiraiya-kun and Naruto-kun, what can I do for you this evening?" the aged Kage asked. "Sensei, I am not going to sugarcoat this. Naruto is being sabotaged in the academy taijutsu lessons. I want to look at the progress reports for his test scores to see if he is being sabotaged in other areas as well," said the Gama Sannin. Hiruzen's face hardened at this. "Well, that is some serious news." He pushed the intercom that was set up at his secretary's desk. "Naoki-chan, bring me the past year's academy reports for the second-year students." "Hi, Hokage-sama," he got as a reply over the small speaker. 5 minutes later the young brunette that we now know as Naoki walked in with 5 small record books. "Here are the last 6 quarterly progress reports, Hokage-sama." "Thank you, Naoki-chan. You are dismissed." She nodded and went back to her desk. As the two older shinobi looked at the records, they found that he was indeed being sabotaged. Sensei, as his legal guardian and as his master, I am withdrawing him from the academy. Jiraiya said. Jiraiya-kun, don't make such hasty decisions. I will reprimand the teachers and set this straight. The Sandaime said to his old student. No, sensei, they will continue to harm my student's progress if he keeps attending that academy. He, as my apprentice, will be withdrawn from the academy and I will take him on a training trip. I can teach him the history he will need to know about the village and of the previous wars. 6.5 years training with me will do him much better than 6.5 years training at that rundown academy that is only fit to teach civilians, said the enraged Jiraiya. I am sorry, Jiraiya-kun, but you will not take him out of the village. I can understand taking him out of the academy, but I cannot allow you to take him out of the village. Being the Jinchuriki, the council will never allow you to take him out of the village for more than a few months. And that would only be for missions once he is older, explained Hiruzen with a tired look on his face. Actually, sensei, you cannot prevent me from taking him out of the village. We signed the papers a year ago for Uzumaki Naruto to legally become my apprentice, thus granting me custody of him since he is an orphan and a ward of the village. I have every right as his master and even more so as his legal guardian to do whatever the fuck I want with the kid. I will be taking him with me, said the Sannin with a triumphant smirk on his face. Hiruzen knew he was beat, but he didn't really care since the council was also beat. He knew that Naruto would be better off if he left the village with Jiraiya anyway. Just like Minato, he could become one hell of a shinobi if he went on one of the training trips with Jiraiya. And this one was twice the length of the trip he took Minato on. Granted, Minato was already a Chunin, but still, Naruto could become one hell of a shinobi. Very well, Jiraiya-kun. As long as the council is put on their ass and can't make more paperwork for me, then I am all for it. If you can do what you did to make the Yondaime so strong in 3 years, then I can't wait to see Naruto-kun's results when this is all over. You think you can make him Jounin level? Sarutobi said, eliciting an awestruck look from the youngest member in the room. Jounin level? Now Naruto just couldn't wait for this training trip now. He would be shaking in anticipation until they left. Sensei, if we come back and he isn't at least Jounin level, then I want you to take away my title as a Sannin. Jiraiya said with mirth in his voice. That's right, Gigi. Get ready to give up that hat, cause when I get back it's gonna be mine. The ecstatic Jinchuriki said. The Sandaime chuckled at his surrogate grandson's enthusiasm. We'll see about that, Naruto-kun. He turned to the last loyal Sannin. When do you plan on leaving, Jiraiya-kun? Well, seeing how I literally just decided to take him on this trip, I think we will end up leaving in about a week. You know, to let the kid say goodbye and let him relax before I get to torture, I mean train him for 5.5 years. If I am going to do it, I will do it right. Enhanced diet, lots of those vitamin supplements, and a shitload of physical conditioning. I'm going to have this kid walking around stronger than Senju Hashirama was at his age. That is quite the statement, Jiraiya-kun. But back to what the council would protest. Will you be taking anyone else for his safety? You are currently one of the top shinobi in the village, but there would be many threats to our most valuable military asset, should he be found out. You should consider taking someone for protection and also for some extra insight in his training, advised the Sandaime. Yeah, I guess that does sound like a good idea, mused Jiraiya. Oi, Gaki. He got the attention of his young apprentice. Go back to the house, I need to talk about some important stuff with Sensei. Here, go get some of that Ichiraku ramen you are always so crazy about, he said while handing him 500 ryo. The blonde didn't question what he was told to do, as he was replaced with a Naruto-sized dust cloud as soon as he had taken the cash out of his master's hand. It was ramen for Kachan's sake, don't hate. Jiraiya then turned back to his old sensei. I know who I want to take with us. It's just one person and he would be a monumental help. And who would that be, Jiraiya-kun? Hatake Kakashi? No, sensei, we have already decided that Naruto will be a ninjutsu specialist. Besides me, there would be no better sensei in the world than Kakashi. The man who has learned over 1,000 jutsu would be perfect for Naruto. Being an Uzumaki and a Jinchuriki is the perfect ninjutsu student for myself and Kakashi. His reserves are months away from rivaling my own after a year of training. Need I remind you that Kakashi is one of the, 5 or 6 people that know his heritage? It's his sensei's son, meaning he is one of the few who would treat and train him fairly. That being said, Kakashi is a must if we take someone else with us. Jiraiya explained. Jiraiya-kun, he is the best ANBU we have at the moment. He is needed for the security of the village. If nations such as IWA knew that you and Kakashi had left the village for 6.5 years, we would surely be attacked. Sensei, this is a training trip that is unannounced to the world. How the hell would they find out? Plus, are you forgetting who I am? I am this village's spy master. While I am training the Gaki, I will be more free to meet up with contacts. I would definitely hear of any attacks on the village before they happen. Have you forgotten that I have spies in each of the major villages and in some of the minor ones as well? Asked Jiraiya. Well, I guess I do not need to alert anyone else but my advisors about this, said the elderly shinobi. It would be best if you keep this a secret from the council until about a week after we leave. The civilian council as well as Danzo will try to keep him in the village at all costs," recommended the Gamma Sennin. "Yes, that is a very good idea." The Sandaime thought about things for a moment. "Very well, you will take Naruto-kun out of the village for 6.5 years. The participants involve you, Naruto-kun, an elite Jounin Hatake Kakashi, who will be briefed by me personally in 2 days' time. He will meet you in a week from today at the North Gate at 8 a.m. I will send you missions every once in a while via my Sara summons. This will help keep you financially stable while you travel, even though you don't need it due to your books, but this will also help Naruto-kun gain experience with handling clients. Do you accept these terms?" concluded the Hokage. "Sounds good to me, sensei. I'll go inform the Gaki." "You going to come see us off in a week?" asked the Sannin as he opened the window to jump out. "Wouldn't miss it," said the old Hokage as he lit his pipe and took a drag. "Oh, and Jiraiya." "Yes, sensei? Use the damn door next time," the older of the two said as he let out a tired sigh. "Not a chance, sensei," the spy master said with a smirk as he jumped out the window. A week later at the northern gate, Naruto and Jiraiya arrived at the gate via Shunshin. They arrive only to see the Sandaime and the Ichiraku duo waiting for them. Naruto ran up to his surrogate grandfather and gave him a big hug. "I'll see you later, Gigi. I promise I'll get really strong so that I can take that hat from you when I get back." Hiruzen chuckled at the statement. "I'm sure you will, Naruto-kun. Just maybe I'll let you take over should you get strong enough." Naruto released the old man and walked over to the ramen stand owners. "I guess I'll see y'all soon enough. I'll miss your ramen so bad." "See ya, Aji-san, Ayam-chan," he said as he gave each of them a hug. Before he released his hug with Ayam, she gave him a quick peck on the cheek for good luck, which made his face go crimson. As he backed away, he heard a poof. When he turned around, he found a taller man in the standard Konoha Jounin uniform with a mask covering his mouth and nose and his hatayate covering his left eye. He had gravity-defying silver hair and was lazily looking at a small orange book that he knew was one of his master's perverted books. Jiraiya was the one to speak up first. "About time you get here, Kakashi." He turned to his apprentice. "Naruto, this is Hatake Kakashi. He will be going with us on our training trip and will be there to help train you. He is one of few people that surpasses myself, or even sensei when it comes to ninjutsu." Kakashi looked up from his book with one of his patented eye smiles. Ma Jiraiya-sama, you're going to make me blush," he said with a sheepish tone. Jiraiya rolled his eyes and turned back to the Sandaime. "Well, it's time to head out. See ya in a few years, sensei," and with that they headed off. Small village on the edge of Hino-kuni. It had been just over 5 years since Naruto had left Konohagakure no Sato for his training trip. He had learned so much in these 5 years. He had also grown a great amount. At 14 years old, Naruto now stood at a good 6 feet tall. He had a lot of muscle on his frame, but you wouldn't think that was the case by looking at him. He had an extremely athletic frame. His arms and legs were toned to the max, packed with muscle. When he took his shirt off, you could see his chest, six-pack, and back muscles flex with every movement. This was due to the intense physical training that Kakashi and Jiraiya had put him through. His face had also changed a little bit. The frame of his face had become a bit more angular. His whisker marks had thinned out to where you might not notice them if you weren't up close, and he had let his hair grow out a bit. He had 2 bangs framing his face, ending just above the corners of his mouth. Think his father, but not quite as long or thick. He sat on the roof of the small hotel reminiscing about his time traveling the world and getting stronger with his 2 sensei. He thought about all the things that had happened in the last 5 years. All the training, missions, the jutsu he had learned, and all the good times he had spent with his senseis so far. Flashback, first year. Naruto was in the middle of a large clearing running laps around the edge of said clearing while his 2 sensei sat on a couple of tree stumps discussing the training for the day. After about an hour, the 9-year-old finished his warm-ups and walked over to his sensei and master. He grabbed a small canteen and took a swig. He then took a deep breath to calm down. After his breathing evened out, he looked at his master. "So Ero-sennin, what are we going to do today? Are you going to teach me awesome jutsu big enough to wipe out a village?" The blonde Jinchuriki said with stars in his eyes at the thought of jutsu that would make him Hokage. "Hell no, Gaki," Jiraiya said, making Naruto face fault. "Listen, Naruto, you need to learn the basics of how to fight first in order to start learning jutsu for you to use. That being said, today we will be starting on taijutsu. Starting with the katas for the style we have chosen for you." Naruto raised an eyebrow at that. They had already chosen a style for him to use? "What style is that, Ero-sennin?" "Damn it, Gaki, stop calling me that. If a woman hears that she won't even so much as look at me," said the perverted sennin with a tick mark on his forehead. "Well, if you weren't such a pervert then you wouldn't have that problem, Ero-sennin," shot back the blonde. "Whatever, brat, plus I'm a super pervert," Jiraiya grumbled at the end. "Anyway, the style we have chosen for you is called the hummingbird style. I know you don't know much about this style, so let me explain. This is a style that depends on great speed and a good amount of strength. You will advance even more once we start your ninjutsu training and you learn how to do the shunshin. With this style you will focus on quick, hard strikes to the enemy's joints and other weak points. This is a style that Kakashi and I are both very familiar with. Naruto looked over to the silver-haired man. You know the style too, Kakashi-sensei? Kakashi looked up from his book with a lazy look. Of course I do, Naruto. My sensei is the one who created it with Jiraiya-sama in the first place. That did not shed any light on the subject for Naruto. Well, who was your sensei? My sensei was Namikaze Minato, the Yondaime Hokage, replied the scarecrow Jonin. Naruto's eyes almost jumped out of his skull, they went so wide. Your sensei was the Yondaime? That is so cool. He waited a minute for the thoughts to process in his head. Wait a minute! That means I'm learning the style that the Yondaime used. Naruto almost passed out, he was so excited. Jiraiya took this moment to step in. Alright Naruto, calm down. If you want to learn the style properly, then you have to learn the kata first. Now back up a few feet and do exactly what I do. And so began Naruto's taijutsu training. Time skip 9 months. Middle of Kaminari no Kuni, we see two people engaged in a spar, one being a tall man with gravity-defying silver hair and the other with spiky, blonde hair. The two are moving extremely fast, so fast that if you weren't a trained shinobi, you would have a hard time making out some of the taller man's strikes that the smaller one was trying to block or avoid. As he blocked a strike to the shoulder, Naruto sent a kick at the back of his sensei's knee, but Kakashi was able to move his leg just enough to dodge it. While his student was still off balance from missing the kick, Kakashi took this time to send a few jabs Naruto's way. Naruto was able to block a few, but having a sensei who is much faster and experienced, he still caught a couple jabs to the torso and a lighter one to the side of the head. Kakashi then appeared at his side and swiped his feet out from under him. But instead of falling on his ass like his momentum wanted him to, he performed a small back handspring and landed a few feet back. He wasn't there long before he launched off the ground to send a few strikes of his own toward his sensei. They spared for a few more minutes before the taller of the two motioned for the other to stop. Alright Naruto, that should be enough for today. You are getting pretty good at using this style. You have all the basics down, you just need to work on your speed and overall timing. Don't worry though, that will come with experience. Kakashi finished it and I smile. Over the past few months, Naruto has slightly upped his workout regimen, worked on his katas, and sparred with Jiraiya and Kakashi. That's it. They did a few studies about Konoha and the past wars a few times a week, but they didn't unnecessarily draw out the lectures like the academy did. But overall, they were training, a little food, a little rest, training, and then more training. This is what it would be like for the remainder of the first year of the training trip. Time skip, month 6 of year 2. We now find our little, blonde hero doing something you would never think he would be doing, sitting still. Yes, you heard me, Uzumaki Naruto was sitting still in the middle of a clearing with his orange jacket and shirt off. But if you looked closer, you would find that he had several leaves attached all across his body. He had a leaf on each side of his hand, 3 on each arm, 2 on his pectoral muscles, 2 on his abs, 1 on each whiskered cheek, and 1 on his forehead. This is the advanced version of the leaf exercise performed in the academy. At the academy, you need to keep a leaf in place on your forehead. Naruto had a total of 17 leaves across his body. You'd think Naruto has enough control to be on par with seasoned Chunin, but at the rate he is at, he is just at around high Genin control. His Uzumaki reserves and being a Jinchuriki gave him just under Kage level reserves at the age of 10. What do you get when you have Kage level chakra reserves at the age of 10? You get the chakra control of a rock. Don't get the chakra control of a rock. Switch to DirecTV and get. Wait a minute, they don't have digital cable yet. Never mind, but he does have horrible chakra control. So to rectify this, they have been doing nothing but chakra control exercises, his taijutsu, and physical exercises for the last 6 months. He had begun tree walking last week and was close to making around 2/3 up the kunai planted 10 feet up in the tree. Naruto, come here! Yelled Jiraiya, who was sitting against a tree across the clearing. When Jiraiya yelled for him, it startled him, interrupting his concentration and making all the leaves fall off of his frame. Damn it, Erosenin! He muttered as he got up to go over to his master. What do you want, Erosenin? I was busy doing my leaf exercise, said a disgruntled Naruto. Well, fine, Gaki. You can go back to your little exercise if you don't want to start your ninjutsu training, said Jiraiya as he crossed his arms over his chest and turned his head away from his apprentice. No, wait, Erosenin, I was just kidding, he said, trying to get the training he had been waiting for a year and a half. Well, I guess I can let it slide this one time. Alright, come over here and we will have a little talk about ninjutsu. Naruto did so and sat Indian style in front of his master with Kakashi sitting up on one of the branches reading his Ika book lazily. Jiraiya cleared his throat before he began the small lecture. So today we will officially start your ninjutsu training. We will be starting off with the 3 basic academy jutsu. Actually, I lied, we are going to be doing 2 of the academy jutsu and an upgraded version of the last one. The jutsu we will be doing for the next month or so are the henge, transformation, kawarimi no jutsu, substitution, and we would be doing the bunshin no jutsu, clone technique. But your chakra reserves are way too big to get a half-decent clone. So instead, we will be doing a technique called the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, shadow clone technique. We will be using that for training later on too. So let's go over into the clearing a bit more and I will show you how to do the jutsu. Time skip month 7 of year 2. While Jiraiya was meeting with his contact in a town about 50 miles from Kumo, Naruto was with Kakashi practicing his ninjutsu. And there was one word you could describe Naruto with when regarding him to ninjutsu. Prodigy. He had mastered the Kage Bunshin in a good 4 hours. Right off the bat he could make up of 50 clones. Realized that was within 4 hours of learning the damn jutsu. Right now, after a month of practice and as a 10-year-old, he could make more than 800 clones. That's a shit ton considering most seasoned jounin, with full reserves, can only make 40 before they pass out. It had taken him about 4 or 5 days before he had a workable henge. Workable being that he could move around and sprint without his transformation dispelling. The Kawarimi had taken him a little longer, about 2 weeks, to master. But when you think about it, it is a watered-down Jikugen, time-space, jutsu. Jiraiya had also gotten the young Jinchuriki started on the first step of the Rasengan, spiraling shear. Though he was having some trouble with that one, after the 2 weeks, Jiraiya decided it was okay for Kakashi to show him how to do the Shunshin. He figured that they could work on it while he was there and Kakashi could show it how to incorporate it into his hummingbird-style taijutsu. So they did just that. Except he got the Shunshin in 3 days. Jiraiya was able to show him how to incorporate it into his taijutsu style and point out his mistakes while he sparred with Kakashi-sensei. Time skip month 1 of year 3. The trio were now resting in a forest that was on their way to the general area around Takigakure. Why were they so close to another village, you ask? They were going to start on Naruto's elemental ninjutsu training. After Naruto had perfected the Rasengan, in a month no less, they decided it was time to start working on getting him learning elemental ninjutsu. They had tested for Naruto's natural affinity before deciding where to go. They had found that his main and strongest affinity was wind, with lesser affinities for fire and water. Naruto knew he would have wind, due to what Ka-chan had told him, but he didn't know what other elements he would be able to work with. He also remembered that he would be able to control wind like it was second nature if he worked hard at it. So with this in mind they headed on to Taki no Kuni. Is there waterfall country? Someone tell me if there isn't, so they could go all the way with his wind manipulation. Because it was a 2-week trip to get there, they decided to take their time and do some training. First thing they did was continue on his Fuinjutsu lessons, which they had started about 3 or 4 months ago. He was a natural at it, but since he decided he would focus on ninjutsu first, they just gave him some basic lessons and let him work through scrolls the rest of the time. He was now about midway through level 3 mastery, going with the max level being 10. They had also gave him his first wind jutsu. Futon, Daitapa, wind release, great breakthrough, was the first elemental jutsu in his arsenal. Kakashi had seen it fit to teach him the hand seals and the basics so he could be working on it while he started on his Futon mastery. He had done pretty well for just knowing the basics and the hand seals. They had started on his mastery for wind as well. But this time they used the Kage Bunshin to their advantage to get ahead in his training. Naruto by now could create around 1,000 clones with full reserves. Jiraiya would have him create 800 clones and would tell them to each grab a leaf. Then all 801 Narutos would try to cut the wind with their chakra only while they slowly made their way to Taki. Time skip month 6 of year 3. Naruto's elemental training could not have gone better. True to his Ka-chan's word, he had godly control of wind. He made use of training with Kage Bunshins every day doing his own version of wind manipulation training. What is this training, you ask? He fucking levitates by pushing Futon chakra out of his hands and feet. He can't fly yet, but he can hover about 6 inches off the ground for about 45 to 50 seconds each try. He mastered the leaf-splitting exercise in a good week with the help of his Kage Bunshin training method. Even less time with the waterfall-splitting exercise. He managed that in 2 days with shadow clones and his already progressing knowledge of Futon manipulation. He had mastered 5 Futon jutsu to this point. He had finished working out Futon, Daitapa right before he finished the waterfall-splitting exercise. He then got a summon to go to visit Sarutobi-sensei for some jutsus since he and Kakashi only knew that one. Sarutobi sent them 5 jutsu scrolls. They were for the Kaze no Yaiba, Wine Sword Technique, Futon, Rankuden, Wind Release, Drilling Air Bullet, Futon, Repusho, Wind Release, Gale Palm, Futon, Atsugai, Wind Release, Pressure Damage, and Futon, Shinkajioku, Wind Release, Vacuum Sphere. He had mastered all but Futon, Atsugai and Futon, Shinkajioku. There was just something about manipulating the air pressure that was harder than using the cutting or repelling force of wind. Creating a vacuum kinda comes with the air pressure, so he would be doing that jutsu last. Time skip month 1 of year 4. Naruto was officially a master of Futon jutsu. He had mastered all the jutsu he had been given about a month ago. For the past month he had been working on manipulating the air pressure to his will, and let's just say it works like a charm. In spars, he could control the air pressure to such a degree that he could make the air around his opponents so great that it would cause them to fall to their knees. He could only hold it for a few seconds and he could only execute this move twice a day, but it was one hell of a breakthrough. He would train to extend the usage of this move religiously throughout his training trip. Now he was starting training on his minor elements. Once he also mastered these, he would work on creating sub-elements by combining them with his wind element, like his Kachan said he would be able to do. Flashback end. Thinking back on his training made him smile. He hadn't been able to create sub-elements yet, but he had mastered Katan, Suiton, and was decent at using Right-un knowing 2 Right-un jutsu. He also looked back on his missions up to this point. The first 20 or so had been stupid little chores that they had picked up at the town halls whenever they stayed in a small village on the outskirts of any given country. Those he didn't really consider missions, just little tasks to get him used to dealing with clients. No, the real mission started right after he had finished his basic jutsu. He still remembers the first C-rank type mission he went on. He frowned as he thought about the one thing that he hated most about his career to this point, something that his first mission had brought: his first kill. Flashback month 10 of year 2, Naruto was bouncing on the balls of his feet. He was finally going to do a real shinobi mission. Jiraiya had ended jutsu training a little earlier that day. Saint at Gigi had contacted him around lunchtime via summons giving them their first mission. There was a small bandit camp terrorizing travelers in a small town just inside the border with Kaminari no Kuni. They were to take that little camp out. Jiraiya had told Naruto to stay off his feet and to get plenty of rest for the mission the next day. Time skip the next morning. As Jiraiya and Kakashi packed up their small camp and sealed all the unneeded items and scrolls, they made sure to unseal plenty of kunai and shuriken for their young blonde charge. After they had finished tearing down camp, they quietly made their way toward the bandit camp. After 10 minutes of tree jumping, they were right outside of the camp and could view all of the bandits. Most were just waking up as it was about 8 in the morning by this time. Jiraiya pulled Naruto aside and kneeled down in front of the 10-year-old. He put his hands on the shoulders of his godson, who was bouncing up and down with excitement, and looked him straight in the eyes. Naruto, I know it is exciting that you are beginning your career as a shinobi for real today, but you need to be calm and collected at all times during the mission. I'm not going to lie. We are going to kill people today. We don't like it, but these evil men are doing unspeakable things to many people in the nearby village and to those traveling these roads. Do not be afraid and do not hesitate. Kakashi and I will be there to protect you should anything go wrong. Kakashi took a turn at talking to the son of his sensei after Jiraiya stood up to analyze the bandit camp. Don't worry, Naruto, I will protect you with my life. You remember our little motto? Naruto smiled a little and replied, those who abandon orders are trash, but those who abandon comrades are worse than trash. Kakashi I smiled. Damn straight. As he held out his fist for a bro fist, Naruto pawned the masked Jounin and turned to Jiraiya for orders. Jiraiya turned back to them and cleared his throat. Alright, there seems to be about 40 or so bandits. Judging by the reserves of their chakra, none of them are ninja and just simple bandits. Don't underestimate them, but they shouldn't be too hard to deal with. Kakashi and I will take out the bulk of them with Naruto just taking out as many as he can handle. Kakashi, I want you to go around to the northern side of the camp and start from there. Naruto and I will start on this side so I can keep an eye on him. Launch a Katan jutsu at a few that are bunched up to catch them off guard and to signal when Naruto and I should start. Kakashi nodded and headed over to the other side of the camp. Jiraiya and Naruto sat there and waited for about 5 minutes until they saw a bright light ahead and heard a few screams. Time to roll, Gaki. Remember, don't hesitate. Let's go, said the Sannin as he took off with Naruto right behind him. Jiraiya and Kakashi didn't have a tough time, but Naruto struggled with one of the stronger bandits he was engaging. He had taken a couple of bandits by surprise by hitting them with a few kunai, and mobilizing them, but not hitting any vital spots. At the moment he was engaged with a bandit that was a bit faster than him. He also had a sword, so Naruto was at a disadvantage in this aspect also. Naruto, with a kunai in each hand, stabbed at the bandit with his right hand. The bandit blocked it with his sword and parried it to make Naruto lose balance a little bit. While he was off balance, the bandit swiped down with his sword. To Naruto, it looked like it was in slow motion. So without hesitating, he raised his left hand up to block the sword with the kunai, and slashed across the bandit's neck with the other hand. The swipe was right on target, slicing the bandit's neck right at the jugular. Naruto's eyes widened at what he had just done. He could hear the bandits gurgling and watched as the life left his eyes. Naruto fell to his knees, with tears running freely, unable to move. He could see another bandit with one of the kunai he had thrown running toward him with the intention to drive it through his skull, but he couldn't move. He waited to get his just deserts for killing the other man a few seconds ago as the other bandit drew closer. The new assaulter shoved his kunai forward to impale the boy. But at the last second, Kakashi appeared beside him, shoving a kunai of his own into the bandit to protect the blonde. Kakashi pushed the now dead bandit to the side and kneeled down in front of the shaking 10-year-old. Come on, Naruto. Snap out of it, buddy. You're safe now. All the bandits are gone and our mission is over. I killed that G-guy. I really am a demon. The boy choked out while sobbing. Naruto, if you are a demon then I am Satan. I killed almost 20 men back there. But you know why we did it? Naruto shook his head. It's because those were evil men. Naruto, they had stolen and killed countless people on the road and in the village for money. We were getting rid of these people so others could be safe. I know you're not alright with killing, and trust me, that's a good thing. It needs to be done when people are too gone to save, just like these bandits were. Jiraiya watched this from a couple steps back and decided to step in. Why don't we find a nice hotel room and just let you rest for the remainder of the day? Flashback end. He remembered the care he had received from his master and sensei had helped, but nothing helped more than the soothing he had received from his Kachan that night. His Kachan always knew just what to say, even when he met the Kyuubi and when he learned about his parents. That's right. He had already knew about his lineage and had met the Kyuubi, and boy was she angry. Flashback month 8 of year 4. Naruto opened his eyes in his mindscape expecting to see the white walls he would meet before he spent the night with his Kachan. But that was not what he was looking at right now. Not one bit. He found himself in the middle of a dimly lit place that resembled a sewer. The walls were giant brass pipes and he was ankle deep in water. This was water, right? He leaned down to sniff the water. Fucking disgusting. That is not water, he thought. He used his water walking ability and walked further into the sewer to explore a little bit. Eventually he came to face a massive cage that was taller than the main gates of Konoha. There was a small piece of paper where the two gates met that had the kanji 4 seal on it. He peered inside only to see two great, red, slitted eyes looking at him menacingly. Come closer, a deep voice lowly called out. Naruto, being a bit scared and doubtful, didn't do what the voice said, preferring to remain there silently. Come closer so I can RIP you two shreds, Ningen. The voice shouted, banging against with its head. No thanks, the boy said tentatively while backing up a bit. As he backed up, a little light was casted into the cage to the point where he could see what was inside calling to him. He could make out the massive orange fox that had 9 tails swishing violently behind it. So my precious little jailer has finally found the time to visit little old me. I feel so honored, Kyuubi said, voice dripping with sarcasm. So you are the Kyuubi no Yoko, said Naruto to himself, but Kyuubi heard him. No, I am not. I'm the Easter Bunny. Of course I'm the Kyuubi, you insolent Ningen. Now rip off the seal and release me, you worthless sack of flesh. Naruto was a bit taken back by this. Easy, man, I can't release you. It would kill me, like I care, brat. It's not like your puny life is worth anything to me anyway. Now tear off the seal and I will be on my way. Naruto was starting to get angry at the way he was being insulted now. What is your problem, fuzzball? I never did anything to you. You are the reason I am trapped in this fucking cage, Ningen. That is why I hate you. You are the reason I am here wasting away in this god-forsaken sewer. Well, I can blame you for my problems too. You are the reason I was hated, ignored, and mistreated in my village. That's just like you ninjas. Blaming all your troubles on something else just because your lives weren't easy. Yeah, well, there's the old pot calling the kettle black. You literally just blamed me for keeping you prisoned here, when I was not even a day old when Yandame-sama sealed you into me. Doesn't that sound just like the ninjas that you hate so much? Asked Naruto. The Kyuubi's tails thrashed behind it violently as it started releasing an unmatchable amount of bloodlust and killer intent. I'm gonna call it KI for the rest of the story. How dare you compare me with you worthless ninjas? I ought to. The Kyuubi was cut off as a new surge of power, that oddly didn't affect Naruto, crushed its own. That will be enough, Naomi-chan. There is no need to scare my Sochi so badly, no matter the impression you wanted to make. Naruto turned around to see his Ka-chan standing there looking at the Bijou. Ka-chan! Naruto yelled as he ran to give his mother a hug. Hello, my Naru-chan, said the goddess as she gave a hug and a kiss to the forehead of her not so little anymore son. He was about 4 inches taller than she was now, but she managed. She wasn't a goddess for nothing. She turned back to the Kyuubi before she spoke again. Naomi-chan, please change into your regular form so we can have a nice conversation, please. The Kyuubi, now known as Naomi, weird name for a guy, wink wink, sighed. Hi, Kami-sama. Suddenly there was a great flash of red that blinded Naruto for a few moments. He rubbed his eyes and the sight he was greeted to was one he would treasure for a while. There, instead of a giant orange fox, was a gorgeous woman. She stood at around 5 feet 8 inches in a white kimono with black flames at the bottom and the kanji 49 on the back. She had slitted red eyes and crimson hair that went down to her shapely behind. Her behind was matched by her bust, which sat at a high D cup. Wait a minute! Men don't have breasts. You're a woman? Shouted a confused blonde. Of course I am Baka. Men don't tend to have tits like this, do they? Naomi asked with a scowl. Calm down, Naomi-chan. You wouldn't talk to the legacy of your father like that, would you? Kami said with a smirk. No, but he isn't. You're going to make him my father's legacy, aren't you? Asked Naomi, who knew the answer to the question. But of course. Who better than my own son to bring peace to the world? Naruto was completely out of the loop. Alright, Ka-chan, what the hell is going on? Whose legacy am I and who was her father? Kami looked over to Naomi and nodded at her, saying to explain. Naomi huffed. I can't believe that this brat is going to succeed my father. She turned to Naruto and explained. My father was known as the Rikudo Sannin, sage of the 6 paths, to you ninjas. I'm guessing Kami-sama will be blessing you with his eyes, which is probably the strongest force in the universe. Kami nodded at this. That's right, Naruto-kun. I will be blessing you with the best ocular prowess the world has ever seen. You will later in your life unlock the Dijitsu known as the Rinnegan. You will learn about this from Naomi-chan when you unlock it, as she knows all about it and its powers. Why don't I just get it now, Ka-chan? asked Naruto. Era, is my little Naruto getting lazy? You will need to keep working hard if you want to receive this gift as you have for the rest of my gifts, Naruto. You and Naomi-chan will need to learn how to get along and work together if you truly want to bring peace. Now this is not the only reason I am here tonight. I am here to tell Naruto that something is going to happen tomorrow night. What will be going on, Ka-chan? You will learn who your biological parents are. What? I thought none of them knew who my birth parents were, he said angrily. He was calmed down from his angry thoughts by a hug from his mother. Now, Naruto. This is why I am here. You do not need to be angry at them for keeping this from you. They did it to protect you. Both of your parents had many enemies. They only were trying to protect you. I would have done the same thing if I were put in the same position. Naruto was silent for a moment, then he huffed, fine, but I don't have to like it. I know, just be patient with them tomorrow and be understanding of the position they were put in. I know you will make me proud with your decision. Now it is time for you to wake up, Sochi. I want you to come in here on the nights that I do not come to visit you. To come here, just think about coming here when you start to fall asleep and you will appear. You and Naomi-chan need to get to know each other before you start to work together. I will see you soon, my little Naruto-chan, she said. She kissed him on the forehead before he went back into the world of the living. Flashback end. Yeah, he wasn't too happy when he found out who his parents were. He took it well, but still. He was the kid of Uzumaki Kushina and the guy who sealed Naomi into his gut. And he was treated like an outcast, despite being the child of two of the most popular people in the history of the village. Oh, Baka, you act like it is such a bad thing that you're stuck with me for a while, sighed the fox girl in his head. Ah, come on, Naomi-chan, don't be like that. You know I love you, he said with an embarrassed tone at being caught with his thoughts. Bibaka, I told you not to call me that, the queen of Bija said with a blush, not that Naruto could see it. Composing herself, she spoke up again. It's getting pretty late, Naruto. You should probably get some rest. Does Naomi-chan miss me already? Don't worry, I'll be right in to cuddle with you, baby, he thought with a smirk. It was funny to hear someone so powerful stutter. Don't say such things, Narabaka. Not like I care anyway. Do whatever you want, she said, blushing up a storm and cutting the link. He laughed as he felt the link being cut. He and Naomi had grown really close over the last few months. Honestly, he had grown a small crush on her. But hey, if you were in such close proximity with a babe like that, wouldn't you get one too? Before he headed inside to sleep and talk to Naomi, he thought about what the rest of the training trip would be like. Jiraiya had said it will go however he wanted it to go. If he wanted to try working on Naomi's chakra, creating jutsu, learning how to use a sword, or even advanced Fuinjutsu lessons, he'd probably do all of it, with his army of Kage Bunshin, of course. Oh well, time to rest and tease Naomi-chan, he thought before heading on inside. The next year or so is going to be fun. Main gate of Konoha, a year and a half later. It was a hot day in Konohagakure. Hai no Kuni was known for its high temperatures year-round, but today was more than your normal day. It was just over 100 degrees and humid like nothing else. I feel bad for the poor team that has to catch Tora today. Anyway, the two people that were suckered into gate duty today were Kamizuki Izumo and Hagane Kotetsu. The eternal Chunins were guarding the gate. What else is new? But there they were, sitting back playing cards for like the 30th time today. It's hotter than Satan's ball sack out here, and we are here stuck guarding the fucking gate. Got any fours? Asked Izumo. Damn it, I have two of them, Kotetsu said as he tossed the pair over to his partner. And quit complaining. This isn't so bad. Yeah, it's hot, but we are in the shade doing nothing all day. Got any sevens? Go fish. But that's the point. We haven't done anything in weeks. Ever since you decided to sign us up for the gate guarding shifts, we haven't done shit. No border patrols, no escorts, no bandit or missing nin camps, nothing. It's so boring just sitting here doing nothing. Kotetsu frowned as he drew his card. This was not his game. Oh, shut up, will ya? This beats having to do all those missions or working for a living. Izumo set his cards down as he sees four figures with hooded cloaks walking at a leisurely pace toward the gates. Hold up, there is someone coming. As they got closer, they shed their cloaks, and you could make out that 3 out of the 4 mystery nin were men and 1 was a woman by their heights and body shapes. The first was a tall man that stood about 6 feet 4 inches. He was wearing a sleeveless red cloak over an olive green shirt and pants with traditional Geta sandals, had white hair that went down his back in a spiky ponytail, and a Hittite with the kanji 4 oil. This they recognized was the Gamma Sennin Jiraiya. The next was a man that stood about 6 feet 2 inches. He donned the normal Jounin outfit with the flak jacket, had gray gravity-defying hair, and had a mask and his Hittite covering the majority of his face. They knew who this was, as he was the most notable Jounin in the village. This man was Hatake Kakashi of the Sharingan Eye. The last of the males was one that looked much younger than anyone in the rest of the group. He looked to be about 15 or 16. He was a good 6 feet tall, had blonde hair with red tips, deep blue eyes, and faint whisker marks on his cheeks, 3 on each to be exact. Of course, if he was wearing a crap ton of orange, they would have recognized him as the Kyubi Jinchuriki, Uzumaki Naruto. But he wasn't. He was wearing black A&BU-style pants, a short-sleeved mesh shirt with a black sleeveless shirt with a dark orange tiger camel pattern he couldn't give it all up people and black shinobi sandal with the calves wrapped down to his ankles. He also had a katana strapped to his hip. The last was the female. She was fairly tall for a woman, had brown, pupilless eyes, green hair that was tied into a bun at the top of her head with thick, blonde locks framing her face. She wore a sleeveless and backless top, purple pants, and a white wrap around her stomach. She was very attractive with her rather large feminine assets and a round behind. This was Shikoten no Pakura, formerly of Sunagakure. As the four walked toward the massive gates of Kanehigakure no Sado, Jiraiya stepped up front and went up to the small check-in kiosk in front of the gates. The two eternal Chunin stood at attention when they saw one of the Sannin come up to the gate. Jiraiya-sama. Jiraiya held up a hand for the two to calm down. Easy, you two. Sarutobi-sensei already knows that we are coming today, so we are just going to go on up to his office. And before they were able to answer, all four shinobi had used the Shunshin to get the Hokage tower. The eternal Chunin just looked at each other and shrugged their shoulders. So got any nines? Go fish. Hokage tower. Sarutobi Hiruzen was almost done with the large stack of paperwork that his secretary had brought in earlier in the morning. Once he finished, he would be free from the accursed tree shavings of death. Until after lunch, when she brought in another stack. Sigh, some things never change. Knock knock, you may enter, the Sandaime Hokage said without looking up as he signed the last document in the large stack of paperwork. Because he didn't look up when the four came in, he was not expecting the Jinchuriki and his crew. When he looked up, he remembered that they were supposed to be back today. He cleared his throat before he began speaking. Naruto-kun, Jiraiya-kun, Kakashi-kun, I suspect the training trip has accomplished its goal. Before the leaders of the group could say anything, our favorite blonde was a little quicker. You bet, Gigi. You better be ready to hand over that hat, because I've gotten so good that the hat will naturally gravitate to my head instead of your wrinkly one. I haven't been Hokage at such an age for nothing, Naruto-kun. I was called the Shinobi no Kami for a reason, I will have you know. Jiraiya took his turn. Why don't you test him and find out, sensei? He could easily beat the majority of Jounin already. What else would you expect with my teaching, though? He said with a smug little smirk at the end. Hiruzen raised an eyebrow at this. What do you think of that statement, Kakashi-kun? Kakashi, who had by now gotten out his pocket-sized orange book much to Pakura's ire, looked up and I smiled. It's not very much of an exaggeration, Hokage-sama. He could fight on par with most Jounin in taijutsu, just as good if not better than Jiraiya-sama at Fuinjutsu, and is on par with myself in the ninjutsu category. He could easily take out most of our Jounin. Naruto, who had puffed his chest out at this proclamation, turned to his surrogate grandfather and smirked. Ready to pass me the hat yet, old man? Itai, ouch in Japanese. He was then firmly smacked over the back of the head by Pakura. He looked at her with a small pout. What the hell, Nachan? Pakura crossed her arms over her abundant chest and frowned. You should speak with respect to Hokage-sama, Naruto-kun. Hiruzen had by this time noticed the former Suna Jounin. Pakura-san. May I ask what you are doing here in my village? And without your Suna Hittite? The Sandaime asked, ready to call Anbu in if she was a problem. Oi, Gigi, she's with us. She wants to become a kunoichi for Konoha. Naruto exclaimed. The Sandaime was extremely shocked at this. Oh? If she truly wants to join Konoha, then why would she have faked her death? You do realize she was proclaimed to be murdered by IWA 6 months ago, right? If she is indeed who she says she is, then why is she here and not in Suna where she belongs? Usually, I would just send her back to Suna as a sign of goodwill, given we have some form of alliance with them. At this, Pakura started to sweat. If she was sent back to Suna, she would definitely be killed, so she couldn't spill the truth about her death. Gigi, you can't do that. They would kill her, Naruto said as he stepped forward and put his arm out in front of her in a protective manner. And why would that be, Naruto-kun? That makes it seem like she has done some criminal act on an internal scale in Suna, or she was named a missing nin in secret and sent to be assassinated. The old Kage sighed and rubbed his forehead. If this is the case, I will have to send her back, or we could lose the alliance, or they could declare war on us. That's not how it went down, Gigi, shouted Naruto. Oh? Then you would care to explain? Flashback 6 months before the end of the training trip, Pakura was ready to die. She lay there in the valley at the edge of Mizuno Kuni, bleeding out from several wounds in her back and on the front of her torso. She had been betrayed by the Kiri shinobi she was sent to negotiate with, and her home village. She was struck down when she was not looking. She knew that no one was coming for her either. Apparently there was some agreement between the villages that her life was to be given for the prevention of war. As she lay there staring into the last sunset she was likely to see, she shifted through her memories and thought back to all she had accomplished in her life. It had been a tough. She had struggled and fought tooth and nail to master her bloodline and for the rest of her skills, for the respect she had earned, and for everything else she had ever had. And here she was bleeding out in the middle of a valley where no one would ever find her after being betrayed by the village she had risked her life for. That's what she thought anyway. As she succumbed to unconsciousness due to blood loss, she didn't notice the spiky head of blonde hair exploring the valley for some kind of animal to eat. Naruto didn't necessarily find anything for dinner, but he went back to the small camp where Jiraiya and Kakashi were relaxing by a fire they had lit for the night to get her some first aid at the very least. The sensei and master of the unpredictable blonde knew not expect anything with the student that just seemed to attract every curveball life could throw at him. But yet they were not ready for him to bring in a famous kunoichi that was bleeding out slowly and ask for them to help him administer first aid. They made sure that they properly bandaged her. Jiraiya wasn't so perverted when someone's life was on the line, and forced blood pills down her throat so she wouldn't die of blood loss. For 2 days they changed bandages, forced crushed up food pills down her throat so she had at least some nourishment, and waited for her to wake up. She freaked out a bit when she woke up, but when they explained where she was, she managed to calm down a bit. She had explained to the trio about what had gone down that night, and how she was betrayed by her village. Naruto, being the kind-hearted person he was, immediately offered for her to stay with them and their group. Jiraiya, after some thinking, saw nothing wrong with it, and offered her the same thing. He even went a step further and said if she proved to be trustworthy, then he could vouch for her and get her into the shinobi program in Konoha. She then agreed to staying with them and considered the offer to become a shinobi. Throughout the journey, she had added some very helpful insight into Naruto's training and even helped him develop his Shokunin affinity once he had deemed her trustworthy enough to tell her his story, about his adoptive mother, and also about the possibilities with his powerful wind affinity. As they trained together, Naruto and Pakura warmed up to each other nicely. Not in so much in a romantic way, but in more of a sibling-like relationship. She was able to give him some structure and help him mature a little bit by playing that older sister role. Flashback end. So, Gigi, you going to let her join? All 3 of us will vouch for her. She can be trusted, and the fact that she already knows about Ka-chan and my abilities should prove that, Naruto said, fervently trying to get his sister figure into the village for good. Sarutobi folded his hands in front of his mouth in thought. He then sighed before making his decision. I'm sorry, Naruto-kun, but I cannot allow her to stay and become a shinobi. It would tense our relationship to the only major ally we have. Naruto was shocked at the lack of guts by his Gigi. But that being said, he still had one last card in his back pocket. Fine, Gigi, you don't have to let her stay or become a shinobi. I'm glad you see some reason. Gigi, you didn't let me finish, Naruto said with a serious expression. You don't have to let her stay, but if she goes, then I will refuse to become a shinobi for this village and will go with her. She is like the sister I never had and refuse to just let her go. If you refuse her, then you lose possibly the greatest military asset that the village will ever have. Everyone in the room was floored at this declaration. Sarutobi, because he did not think for 1 second that his surrogate grandson would even think about becoming a Konoha shinobi, especially after hearing about his birth parents and their sacrifices. Jiraiya and Kakashi were speechless because they knew he was serious about this. Pakura, because she was amazed at the lengths that he was going through to keep her with him. She had been having some abandonment issues after the whole village betrayal thing, so the statements made by her little brother made her elated. Naruto was the one to break the silence with a little murmur to the side that was just loud enough for everyone to hear. Maybe we could go to Kumo. I heard that they were really big on Jinchuriki and Kekkai Genkai. How does that sound to you, Ne-chan? The Sandaime paled at this. Naruto-kun, be reasonable about this. The council would never allow you to leave and go somewhere else, anyway. Naruto looked back at the Hokage. Gigi, I can do whatever the hell I want. I am not yet a shinobi of this village, and as such cannot be placed in the bingo book as a missing nin. And I am stronger than most assassins you could send after me, especially with Pakura Ne-chan with me. I came prepared for all of this, Gigi. You can either grow a set and let Ne-chan in, or you can watch both of us go to Kumo, where they will welcome us with open arms, he said, crossing his arms over his chest and turning his head away. Sarutobi was in a bind. He could let possibly the person with the most potential in history walk out the door, or he could walk into an extremely difficult foreign policy situation. He sat there determining the pros and cons of both. He finally came to a decision. Naruto-kun, if both Jiraiya and Kakashi can vouch for her, then I will allow her to stay with you. Naruto let out a whoop, picked up his sister, and spun her around in excitement. You hear that, Ne-chan? You get to stay. Pakura, who didn't care to be dizzied, just patted him on the head. Yes, and while that is great, you need to put me down. Naruto did so and rubbed the back of his head with a sheepish smile. Sorry, I just got a little too excited to bail. As he said that, he slapped his hands over his mouth and blushed. After everyone got in a short chuckle at the blonde's expense, Sarutobi spoke up. Naruto-kun, while I can get her to stay, I cannot protect her from the council and their schemes. Naruto smirked at that. I said that I came prepared, didn't I, Gigi? I, Uzumaki Naruto, officially placed Pakura under the protection of the Uzumaki clan and as of now wish to officially adopt her into the clan. As the last of my clan here in Konoha, it makes me clan head by default. So I actually can do this. Jiraiya chuckled and laid a hand on his apprentice's shoulder. The Gaki is right, sensei. He studied clan laws for about a week straight when I told him about this little loophole. Sarutobi went digging through a cabinet on the side of his desk. He dug out a small stack of papers and pushed them towards the direction of Naruto and Pakura at the end of his desk. These are official papers for clan adoptions. If you can get these filled out before the council meeting in 2 days' time, then she will officially be Uzumaki Pakura. Sarutobi then continued speaking. By the way, the council meeting is about team assignments for this year's Genin crop, the same age group as Naruto-kun. I expect you to graduate and become a Genin like the rest of the young men and women your age. Naruto looked at his grandfather figure with a deadpan expression. No, Gigi, yes, Naruto-kun, you're fucking insane. The blonde replied. Gigi, I am stronger than most of the shinobi in the village combined. Kakashi-sensei says that I can hang with him for a good amount of time when he is going all out with his Sharingan. That's without me using the 3 of Naomi-chan's tails I have available. Hiruzen turned to Kakashi. Is this true, Kakashi? You said he could take out the majority of the Jounin already, but does this include you? Kakashi put his book up and gave an eye smile toward the Hokage. I wouldn't say he could take me out, but he can definitely give me a run for my money. Perhaps you should watch us spar? The Sandaime looked over at Naruto and sighed. I guess that would be the best thing. He stood up and walked over to the other people in the room. Grab a hold of me and we shall go to my private training grounds. Everyone placed a hand on the elderly Hokage and the old man brought out a small sheet of a paper with a very complex sealing array. He channeled chakra into his other hand and swiped it across the seal. Not a second later, and they all vanished with a cloud of smoke and a poof. Hokage's private training ground. As the group appeared in the training ground, they all looked around. It was a darker room that was easily the size of a few buildings. It had a decent-sized pond in one of the corners and a few trees throughout the training ground, and one corner of it was reminiscent of a small forest. Naruto was the first to speak out. Gigi? This place is awesome. Where are we to bail? Hiruzen chuckled at the teen's excitable nature. This Naruto-kun is training ground 0. We are currently 300 feet underground beneath the Hokage monument. Hashirama-sensei made this training ground with his Doton and Mokuton for all of the future Hokage to train in. It was then laced with preservation seals by your father, being the seal master he was, to keep it in pristine conditions. You all should feel special. Even though Jiraiya-kun has been here once before, you 4 are some of the only people in Konoha history who have been here without the rank of Hokage. Sugged. Naruto muttered. Hiruzen then clapped his hands together. Now to get on to business, why don't we hold a spar or 2 to gauge your abilities, Naruto-kun? I want you to have a spar with Kakashi-kun. You can use any moves you want, but please, no killing or maiming. The 2 mentioned shinobi nodded and jumped to the center of the training field. They stood facing each other about 20 feet away from the other. Naruto got into a ready stance. Kakashi pulled up his headband, revealing his Sharingan, and got into his own stance. Jiraiya jumped in between them with a hand raised up. Hajime! Jiraiya shouted as he threw his hand down and jumped back toward the other 2 people in the large room. That very second, the 2 shinobi vanished in a blur, moving toward each other. They met punch for punch, kick for kick, and jab for jab. Their speed was about equal, but Kakashi was the one to get most of the hits in due to his experience. Granted, Naruto got in a few solid hits to Kakashi's weak points, but no big hits. A more seconds went on with the taijutsu clash before Naruto got tired of it and jumped back. In mid-air he started weaving seals. He landed about 30 feet away from the pond and finished his seals with a dog seal. Futon, Shinku Renpa, wind release, vacuum serial waves, 4 large waves of distorted wind shot out at Kakashi. Kakashi immediately weaved Thorug seals, ended on the snake seal, and slammed his hands to the ground. Doton, Doryahiki, earth release, earth-style wall, a large stone with the head of a dog popped out in front of him and blocked the waves of wind. When the wall sunk back into the ground, Kakashi was no longer behind it. Naruto looked around for a moment, and held his right hand up in a half-ram seal to scan the area with his sensor ability that he had gained in the last month of his trip. After 2 seconds, his eyes snapped open and he jumped back to avoid 2 gloved hands wrapping around his ankles attempting to pull him under. He landed a few yards away from his previous spot as Kakashi shot up from the ground that his hands were sticking out of. As soon as Kakashi was up, he fired 3 kunai at the blonde. The blonde took out a kunai of his own to block them, but when he looked up he noticed that Kakashi was holding his hands in the bird seal. Suetun, Suryuden no Jutsu, water release, water dragon bullet technique. Naruto was quick to react as he jumped back to avoid the massive water dragon. The dragon didn't dissipate, but bounced off the ground, reared back, and once more shot off toward the blonde. This time, Naruto had time to counter. He landed and held his right hand to the side of his body. A bright orange ball of fire that was wrapped in a red aura-like shroud appeared in it. He reared back and launched it at the incoming water dragon. Shikuten, Kajusatsu, scorch release, extremely steaming murder. The 2 jutsu met and exploded in a mist of steam that enveloped the majority of the massive training ground. Back with the Hokage and Pakura, the older of the 2 was shocked at the jutsu used by the blonde. He looked over to the former Sunanin and quickly cleared his throat. So is this what Kami-sama meant by a complete mastery over wind? The formation of sub-elements? Pakura nodded. Hi. After he told me of his Kachan and her gifts, he told me about the possibility of sub-elements. It was true as you saw. He took to learning them quickly once I helped him complete the mastery of Katan Jutsu. The Hokage turned and looked back at the mist. Interesting. You said he completed the mastery for Katan as well? She gave another quick nod. Hi, Hokage-sama. He has mastered it, but doesn't have many justa for it. He prefers to use the Shikun to Katan with both being offensive elements. What other elements has he mastered? Asked the Hokage. He has also completed the mastery for Futon, as you already knew about, and also for Suiton. Those were his affinities, so that is all he has worked on. He says he will go about learning some Doton and Raiton, especially Raiton, later on in his career. He just wants to focus on what he has at the moment. Hiruzen nodded as he looked more closely into the steamy mist. With the spar, Kakashi tried to look for Naruto's chakra signature with his Sharingan, but the mist was laced with chakra residue due to the clash of the two powerful jutsu. At the last second, however, he noticed a black silhouette moving toward him. Naruto shot out of the mist with his sword drawn and reared back to strike. Kakashi quickly produced two kunai and pumped them full of chakra to elongate and strengthen them, thus cancelling out the advantage of Naruto having a katana. As Naruto brought his sword forward to slice Kakashi in half, Kakashi put his chakra-infused kunai in an X to block. The block was successful and Kakashi pushed back, sending his student off balance a bit. Kakashi took this time to make a few swipes and jabs with his dual kunai, but Naruto still had enough body control to parry each jab and slice. Naruto jumped back a bit to regain his balance. He didn't stay for long as he immediately took off toward his sensei. This time, however, he coated his katana in a thin layer of Futon chakra to once more have the advantage. He swung the chakra-coated katana and took a slash to Kakashi's side. Kakashi could see it in advance due to his Sharingan and pulled both the kunai facing upward to block. The block was successful, but not for long. After about a second, the wind-coated katana started to gradually cut through the kwani as Naruto pumped more chakra into his blade. Before Kakashi was cut in half, he pushed away and jumped back a bit. He started going through hand seals, but was stopped when Jiraiya, who was watching while sitting on a nearby tree branch, intervened before he went over to where his sensei was. That'll do, boys. They heard the Gamma Sannin yell from his spot on the tree branch. The two that were sparring stopped and walked over to each other, where they shook hands as a sign of respect to each other. Seems I still can't beat you any, sensei? Don't worry though, it won't be long before I can kick your ass and get revenge for the first 2 years of the trip, Kaka-sensei. Naruto said with a smirk as he released his sensei's hand and started walking over to the others. You would have beaten him if you used my chakra, Naruto-kun. He heard Naomi say in his mind. Naruto rolled his eyes. Don't be like that, Naomi-chan. I didn't want to hurt Kakashi-sensei. You know how I get when I get more than the initial cloak, he said, referencing the insane bloodlust he feels when using anything from a single tail up. If you would actually train with my chakra, then you wouldn't have this problem. You picked Kenjutsu over training my chakra. Sniff, I must not be important to you, Baka trying to make me feel bad. I'll hang out in the seal for longer than normal tonight just for you, Naomi-chan. He teased in a childish manner. While I appreciate and accept the offer, I am not 4 years old. You sure you're going to get it tonight? We'll see, Naomi-chan, he thought. He was brought back into reality by his sensei speaking. Ma, don't worry too much about that, Naruto. You'll keep getting better with experience. And I will not allow that to happen, responded Kakashi as they made it over to the Hokage's position. When they got there, Naruto was the first one to speak. So, Gigi, you ready to give me the hat yet? Or do you want some too? Hiruzen simply shook his head with an amused visage on his wrinkled face. I think it's a bit too early for that, Naruto-kun. You are definitely Jounin level. I would place you in the top 20 skill-wise of all our Jounin. Naruto pumped his fist in the air. Yada! I'm a Jounin now. Next step will be to steal that sweet office and hat from you, Gigi. Now, Naruto-kun, who said anything about you becoming a Jounin? The old Kage asked. Eh? The blonde huffed out in confusion. Didn't you just say it? His question was rewarded by a scoff from his older sister. No, Baka, he said that you are Jounin level. He can't simply make you a Jounin right away. To be a Jounin you have to be able to lead a team, something you haven't ever done in any of the missions we've taken. Naruto sighed as a rain cloud appeared over his crouched form. Mao, so mean, Nei-chan. Pakura sighed at his antics before yanking him to a standing position by the back of his sleeveless shirt. No pouting. Listen to what the Hokage has to say. Hiruzen chuckled at the scene in front of him. Thank you, Pakura-chan. Why don't we all go back to my office now? All the others nodded and grabbed a hold of the sandame. The old man repeated the process he did to appear in the secluded training ground, and with a poof they were back on the top floor of the Hokage tower. When they appeared, the 4 shinobi that were on the trip sat down on either a chair or a couch in front of the Hokage's desk and Hiruzen sat down behind his desk. He then folded his hands on top of his desk and cleared his throat. Now, let's discuss what your roles in this village will be. Jiraiya-kun and Kakashi-kun, you should know your roles as they will stay the same. They nodded at the statement, expecting such. Although, Kakashi-kun, you will take a Genin team in a week. We will discuss this sometime tomorrow. Just come by at your leisure since I don't have any appointments, as far as I know. Hi, Hokage-sama. The masked Jounin replied. Now on to Pakura-chan. He said, looking at the only woman in the room. I know the basics of your skill set and the majority of your records. I will be making you a Jounin, but you will have to have a 2-month probationary period. You will also be overseen in all missions that are outside of the village by Kakashi-kun. Nothing personal, but this is standard protocol for the most part. I would normally have someone from TNI probe your mind for any threats from you, but these 3 here have vouched for you, so this will not be necessary. Is this arrangement satisfactory? Pakura bowed her head slightly. Hi, Hokage-sama. I can't thank you enough for this opportunity. Hiruzen nodded and produced a black Hittite with the Konoha symbol on the metal as well as a Jounin flak jacket. He tossed them to Pakura, who caught both items. You're quite welcome. Naruto-kun didn't give me much of a choice on the matter, did he? He looked over to the blonde. Now on to you, Naruto-kun. I'm sorry, but I cannot make you a Jounin right away. He ignored the indignant squawk from the Jinchuriki, the reason being that you have no experience in leading teams, you have a lack of any official missions as those you did on the trip went on Jiraiya and Kakashi's records because you were not an official shinobi yet, and that you are supposed to work your way up through the ranks. Skipping a rank is very, very rare and it is hardly ever done. Naruto sighed and looked down. Great. Genin. That being said, I congratulate you on skipping the rank of Genin and becoming a Chunin of Konohagakure no Sato. The Hokage finished. Naruto's head snapped up to meet the smiling visage of his pseudo-grandfather holding a black Konoha Hittite and a Chunin flak jacket. And what's the difference between the Chunin and Jounin flak jackets? Does anyone know? If so, tell me in a review or PM, but I thought you said. I did say it was very rare to skip a rank. You might be the first in Konoha history. I know that I have not personally promoted someone 2 ranks at once. That being said, I expect you to make do with all the missions I will be sending your way. If you want to make Jounin quickly, then I want you to agree to taking more missions than most. Often it takes a few years for a newly promoted Chunin to make Jounin. But with the skills I know you hold, I can make an exception like I did today if you can handle leading smaller missions and the increased workload. Naruto nodded furiously. I will GG. I promise I will work harder than any Chunin that has been in this village. He took the Hittite and tied it across his forehead, which pulled his bangs out of his eyes. Nah, GG, do I have to wear this flak jacket? It's not really my style. Plus it's not orange. The Sandaime shrugged. I guess not. You won't lose rank because of it, but you might be mistaken for a Genin because of it. You will need to wear it for official shinobi meetings and council meeting that you might be called to, but other than that you don't have to wear it. Naruto shrugged and sealed it into one of the seals on his wrist. Now, why don't you all go home and get settled back in? I will give you tomorrow off to be rejuvenated before I have you dive into missions. Plus I have to finish off these last few sheets of this blasted paperwork before the council meeting tonight. I wish I could just set it on a cloud and let it float it away into nothingness. You're starting to sound like a Nara, Gigi. Naruto commented with a small chuckle. Now why don't you use Kage Bunshin to do your paperwork? You would still get all the memories, so it's not like you aren't doing it. The Jinchuriki asked in confusion. The Hokage stood there next to the door with his jaw of the floor. He didn't move. After a few seconds of no response, Naruto tried to get the Hokage to snap back into reality. GG, no response. Naruto walked over and started to wave his hands in front of his grandfather's face. Hello? Anybody home in there? He said, getting the same response, or lack of one, he got before. Jiraiya popped up beside him and poked him with a stick he produced from somewhere. Don't ask where. Seriously. I can't even tell if he's breathing. The Sannin muttered. Is he going to be okay? The Jinchuriki asked. The other 3 in the room just shrugged. That's when Sarutobi moved. He started banging his head against his desk repeating the mantra. Stupid, stupid, stupid. That's how he did it so fast. The 4 ninja were confused as hell and tired from their journey, so they just left the geezer to make a very large dent in his desk with his head. Konoha streets. The 4 shinobi decided to split ways at this point. Kakashi went home to sleep or read his porn, while Jiraiya left to go induct some research, so that left Naruto and Pakura to wander the streets. They stopped when they heard Naruto's stomach growl. Hey Nei-chan, you want to get some food? I think you can tell that I'm a little hungry. She thought about it for a moment before nodding slightly. Sure, I could go for some food. You got anywhere in specific in mind? Naruto got a devilish grin on his face. We all know what restaurant he was thinking of. Ichiraku ramen. I was tired. It was around 3 if the sun's position was right, and the lunch rush was officially over. She had been working all by herself in the stand for about a year now, with her father going off to plant another Ichiraku ramen in Tanzakagai. She had hired a few extra employees here and there to help out, but out of the 2 that were currently employed, one was visiting family in Suna and the other had come down with the flu. She pulled down the shutters and sat down in the back of the store. After all, it was a hot day, and she needed a break. She didn't feel like going into her apartment that she had adjacent to the back of the decent-sized ramen stand. She sat in the back as she rubbed the sweat off of her delicate arms. She had become quite a beauty. At 18 years of age, she had a reputation with males that most women would wish for. Ayam's face had matured a lot since she was a little girl's. She had grown out of what little baby fat she had when she was a small girl. She now sported a somewhat athletic figure. She liked to keep her figure and run in the mornings despite just being any ordinary civilian. She had long, toned legs, a good size behind, not too big, not too small, and a mid-C-cup bust. She wore a white robe with her sleeves rolled up to the middle of her forearms, a blue apron over the robe when she was at work, anyway, and a white bandana to keep the hair out of her face while she worked. They boys, shinobi and civilian alike, were always asking her out and to go to several different events, but she just couldn't do it. Why? She always had a certain blonde in mind. Sure, it could have just been a childish infatuation, but she couldn't let go of it yet. She just remembered how bright and excitable he could be. There never was a dull moment with him around. She didn't see the whole side of Naruto, not that she knew that, but she just wanted to see what he was like now before she could let go of her little crush. Outside the stand, Naruto and Pakura poofed into place right in front of the stand via Shunshin. It's right here, Nei-chan. He looked at the closed shutters and the sign that said that she was on break. She's on break. If I remember right, then they have a small apartment on the backside of the place. There is a little den-like room that connects the two that we would hang out in every once in a while. Let's go say hi, even if we don't get ramen, he said as he led his sister around back. As they started to get around to the back, Pakura asked her younger brother if it would be a light to do this. Naruto waved her off. I'm sure it's fine, Nei-chan. I used to hang out around here with Ayam-chan and Tsuchiyaji-san all the time. Oh, is this the same girl that Jiraiya-sama said that you had that crush on when you were little, Naruto-kun? Pakura teased with a small smirk. Oh, who is this you have a crush on, Naruto-kun? Naomi asked with a dangerous tone in his mind. They had grown much closer in the last year and a half since he met her, but Naruto, being the dense guy he is, still hasn't made a move. And no one, Naomi-chan, he squeaked out in his mind. Oh really? Naruto just turned away with a slight blush and knocked at the door. Shut up, Nei-chan, plus she probably doesn't remember me much anyway, he said as he knocked. Ayam walked open the door with a frustrated expression, not bothering to look at who was at the door. Can't you people see that I am on my break right now? Then she noticed who knocked with wide eyes. Naruto looked at her with an apologetic smile. Sorry, Ayam-chan. Thought me and Pakura Nei-chan could just say hi real quick. We can come back later though, he said, rubbing the back of his head in a sheepish manner. And Naruto-kun? Is that you? The stunned waitress asked. Naruto put a beaming grin on his face as he replied. Yep. Just got back from my trip today and wanted to come by to bail. She immediately rushed forward and gave him a bone-crushing hug. It is you. I haven't seen or heard from you in years. You couldn't think to write a letter or something? Naruto wrapped his arms around her to reciprocate the hug. Sorry, Ayam-chan. I really didn't think about anything like that. Plus, how would you respond if we were always on the move? I guess I couldn't, but you could have written. She then noticed the green-haired woman behind him. Naruto-kun, who is that behind you? She said as she gestured toward Pakura. Oh, I almost forgot. Ayam-chan, this is Pakura Nei-chan. We met her during our trip and she came with us. Nei-chan, this is Ayam-chan. She makes awesome ramen and was my first friend. They exchanged pleasantries and after Ayam turned to Naruto. So would you two like some ramen? But Ayam-chan, aren't you on your break? We can always come back. Naruto replied. No, it's fine. Plus, you haven't had good ramen in over 6 years. We need to rectify that. So Naruto and Pakura went and had some ramen in the back of the shop while talking to Ayam. They exchanged stories of things that had happened and had sat there talking for a couple hours. At around 5:30, Pakura nudged Naruto. We need to be getting to Jiraiya-sama's house to set up my things. You can come back tomorrow for lunch or something. Plus you have to get ready for your test tomorrow, she said as she stood up and walked toward the door. Yeah, I guess you're right. I'll come back tomorrow for more ramen, Ayam-chan, he said as he opened the door. Okay, Naruto-kun, see you then. I need to reopen for the dinner rush anyway, she said as she made her way to the counter to reopen. On the way to Jiraiya's, Pakura and Naruto were taking their time to get to Jiraiya's. Why hurry when you had nothing to do? Pakura eventually turned her head to Naruto. That ramen waitress, she likes you, Ototo. Naruto almost got whiplash. He turned his head so hard to his older sister. Who, Ayam-chan? Pakura facepalmed. He could be so dense sometimes. Yes. She likes you. You should ask her to dinner after her shift tomorrow. I can tell you like her. He heard a quiet growl in his head as Pakura said this. What do you mean you can tell? Is it that obvious? He said with his shoulders slumping and a slight pink tinge appearing on his cheeks. The growl got a little louder. Maybe no to her or anyone else, but I know you better than most, Naruto-kun. Pakura replied. Okay, I'll consider it. But how do you know she likes me? Well, considering she had a blush on her face the majority of the time she looked at you as you talked, it is kinda obvious. she said as they opened the gate to Jiraiya's compound. I don't know, I'll think about it. She shook her head at her brother's indecisiveness and denseness. We can talk about your love life later, Ototo. Now we gotta get all my stuff moved in until we are able to take your parents' compound. Then we have to do that paperwork for the clan stuff. Naruto sighed. This was gonna suck, and he was going to get an earful about I am from Naomi later on if those growls he heard had anything to do with it. Just great. Council meeting that night. In a large room, one of the lower floors of the Hokage Tower, there were 3 groups of people sitting in separate sections of the room. The first group was in 3 rows on the left side of the room facing the door. Many looked disgruntled and were arguing amongst themselves to why they should be in higher power amongst themselves. The people were mainly heavy-set men in fine yukatas made of the finest materials. They all had a stuck-up, snobbish air about them. The women were primped-up sticks in clothing and jewelry that looked like it cost as much as a building from the poorer districts of the village. On the front row in the first seat was a woman with pink hair and green eyes screeching about the meeting being late to start. This group was the civilian council. On the opposite side of the room were a group of 7 individuals who were simply being quiet and waiting for the meeting to begin so they could discuss whatever issues they had to deal with and go home. The first was a man dressed in all white, dark brown hair going down his back, and the signature white eyes of the Hyuga clan. This man was Hyuga Hayashi, the clan head of the Hyuga clan. Next to him was a heavy-set man with long red hair and purple lines on his cheeks. He was the clan head of the prestigious Akimichi clan, Akimichi Chuza. After Chuza was a feral-looking woman with shaggy brown hair and slitted eyes. She was Inuzuka, the clan head of the Inuzuka clan. On her left was a man with dark hair and scars on his face who was passed out on the desk mumbling about troublesome women and their frying pans. This was the ever-so-motivated head of the Nara clan, Nara Shikaku. On the second row of the section was a man who was sitting stoically in his spot with most of his body obscured with some sort of clothing. You would think he was asleep if it were not for the occasional glances around the room. This was Aburaim Shibi, head of clan Aburaim. Next to him was a man with a blonde ponytail and teal eyes. This was Yamanaka Inoichi, the head of the Yamanaka clan. The last was a man in typical Jonin attire with a sash with the kanji Guardian 12 and a cigarette in his mouth. This was Sarutobi Asuma, who was required to attend due his father is not only the clan head, but the Sandaime Hokage and as such does not get 2 votes. This was the Shinobi Council. The last group was the smallest. It was a group of 4 people sitting in an elevated row with 5 seats behind a large desk-like podium. The first 2 were an elderly pair who were talking quietly between just the 2 of them. A man and woman named Mitokado Hamura and Yutan named Koharu. They were the first 2 of the 3 advisors to the Hokage and were also the teammates to the Sandaime Hokage. The third was a man with an impassive face that had the majority of the right side covered by bandages. This was the former commander of the supposedly dismantled Root ANBU force, and the former best friend and rival of the Sandaime, Shimura Danzo. The last was a man wearing a dragon-style mask and standard ANBU attire under a large gray cloak. This was Ryu, the ANBU commander. Next to Ryu was an empty seat. This is the High Council of Konoha, also known as the Hokage's advisors. The room went silent as the doors to the council chambers opened. In walked the Sandaime, with a few files under his arm, along with his old student Jiraiya. Sarutobi took the seat behind the large desk/podium, while Jiraiya took the seat on the end of the row behind him. Hiruzen sat down and arranged the files in the order he would need them. After he finished organizing, he looked up at the council and cleared his throat before he started to speak. The meeting of the Council of Konohagakure no Sato has officially begun. We have an important topic that is the sole reason I have called this meeting. The reason being that our current Jinchuriki of the Kyubi no Yoko is back in the village. I have officially instated him as a shinobi under the rank of Chunin. This got an outrage from the civilian council. There were murmurs among the shinobi council, and the high council just sat there in silence with impassive faces. Well, Ryu had a mask on and Jiraiya had an amused look on his face as he looked at the civilian council making asses out of themselves. Sarutobi silenced the room with a short, powerful burst of chakra. Now I am sure that by now you all know the reason Naruto-kun was gone for the 6 years. While he was with Jiraiya, they traveled the elemental Natoin's training and doing simple missions to make Naruto-kun a strong shinobi. This is also why Jounin Hatake Kakashi was gone, he went with them. He finished with an inward smirk at the memory of how much the council complained and protested after they had learned that Kakashi was gone to train the young Jinchuriki. Hokage-sama, asked Nara Shikaku after standing up, if I may ask, how strong has Uzumaki-san gotten since he left for the trip? Hiruzen sighed at the likely shitstorm this would bring. He has gotten very strong. After watching him spar with Kakashi-kun, I would place him as in Jounin already in terms of strength. Wouldn't you say to Jiraiya-kun? Jiraiya nodded at the statement. Yes. That is correct. I would say that he could handle any shinobi in this village in a 1 versus 1 battle, with a good chance to come out victorious. I know that in some of the more recent spars, I really have to work to beat the kid. One of the merchants in the civilian council stood up immediately after he heard this. Hokage-sama, you can't seriously let that demon have a rank right off the bat like that. Jiraiya unleashed intense ki when he heard what this man was saying about his godson. You have no right to speak about him in that manner, you fat bastard. He's more important to this village than you ever will be, so don't you go spilling off this demon bullshit around here. The fat man who made the comment scoffed. As if the fox brat were more important to the village than I am. I own 2/3 of all weapon surplus stores in this village and many other villages around Hino Kuni. I am arguably the richest man in all of Konohagakure. I have been a member of the civilian council for over 10 years. Humor me, who other than a Hokage could have a higher prestige than I do? The Sandame chose to butt in here. That is the next order of business concerning Uzumaki Naruto. Now we will discuss young Naruto-kun's heritage, inheritance, status in this village. When he said this, Koharu and Hamura stood up and protested. You can't be serious, Hiruzen, snapped Koharu. That is not information that should be disclosed to anyone but us, and you know it. Spat out Hamura. Jiraiya laughed from the side. Well, too bad, because the Gaki knows and is cashing in on his checks. He has also filed to be the clan head. And he's got it. And by the way, shouldn't you show your leader respect by calling him Hokage-sama? The two on the opposite side of the town from Jiraiya snarled and sat down. Danzo remained there seemingly unaffected by this, but on the inside he was fuming. The Uzumaki brat is going to ruin my plans if he gets what Jiraiya is claiming. Ryu was just kind of there. This time Inoichi stood up. Hokage-sama, what is this about his heritage? Uzumaki-san in an orphan. And clan head? Does this have to do with this unknown heritage? Hiruzen inwardly smirked. He had his teammates right in the position they wanted them. They officially couldn't do shit now. Why yes it does, Inoichi. Naruto-kun happens to be from a very prominent clan. He is the new clan head and the sole survivor of the Uzumaki clan. This is because he is the son of Uzumaki Kushina, the last survivor and heir, and Namikaze Minato, our very own Yandame Hokage. The room was silent. Then the shitstorm was unleashed. Well, by the civilian council, the shinobi council was silent in their spots, processing what they had just been told. The civilian council eventually calmed down, and Haruno Mabuki stood up from her seat on the first row. Hokage-sama, you can't believe that we buy that for 1 minute. For one, they were never married. They wouldn't have had a child out of wedlock, and this surely would have gotten out. She finished with several civilian council members nodding their heads. Actually, Haruno-san, I can witness this. Jiraiya said. I was there, Sensei was there, as was the daimyo. Sensei has his signature on the official wedding document up there. He also happens to have Naruto's birth certificate with Minato's signature, and Yandame Hokage's seal. The Hokage held up both of the documents for all to see as Jiraiya continued. In these documents, I have been named his official guardian. As such, I was able to take him out of the village despite his Jinchuriki status. I was also given the right to tell him of his parents, and give him the full rights to his inheritance left by them, which I did the moment we arrived in Sensei's office earlier today with Sarutobi Sensei's permission and signature, of course. Hiruzen picked off where he left off. The inheritance mentioned includes the money in the accounts belonging to his parents, all properties and accounts belonging to the Uzumaki clan, the house and all other properties owned by Minato and or Kushina, and the jutsu library of both of them. And that's not all. Naruto has become the new clan head of the Uzumaki clan. While not one of the major clan in Konoha or one with a council seat, he is now considered nobility in all of Konoha and Hino Kuni and will have the rights as all of the other clan heads do. We will reveal this to the public when Naruto-kun wishes. The civilian and shinobi councils were speechless, especially the Mr. Big Shot that had just spoken out against the former clanless orphan. The most disliked street urchin that ever has been in Konoha was now one of the most prominent figures. Not to mention probably the single most wealthy person in the village now. Who else had the whole financial assets of an entire clan to themselves? And this was the thought to get the civilian council to change their views on him real quick. Hokage-sama, started Aburame Shibi as he stood. I due to the position of Uzumaki-san, I propose that the council enact the Clan Restoration Act with him. Jiraiya then stood up quickly. No. You won't do that. As his legal guardian, I will not allow him to be subjected to that against his wishes, no matter how awesome having a harem would be. Danzo finally broke his silence. Actually, Jiraiya, we can enact this law. The law is to be placed under the orders of the entire council. The council is to decide this on a vote, and if it passes we will have a selection of the women in this harem as you put it. This time it was Hiruzen who spoke up. Very well. You may vote on this as there is no loophole I can exploit in the prevention of the law. But there is a loophole that I did find while researching this in case you did choose to enact it. It says nowhere that the council may dictate who the wives of the subject may be, as long as there are at least 3 women by the age of 20. As it stands, I will not allow you to choose who Naruto-kun will marry until the deadline that is stated in the Konoha Charter. Danzo scowled. Another knot in his plans had been formed. He was hoping to get a member of his root ANBU in there to produce a child that he could eventually use. It was a setback, but he could still worm one of his people into Uzumaki's group. It would seem you are correct, Hiruzen. Now we should vote on the act being passed, suggested Danzo. Very well. The Sandame Hokage then turned to face the councils. The council will now vote on the matter of putting Uzumaki Naruto, head of the Uzumaki clan, under the Clan Restoration Act. All those in favor raise your right hand and say aye. All of the civilian council, the Hokage's advisors except Jiraiya, and half of the shinobi council raised their hands and said aye. The Hokage sighed. Uzumaki Naruto will as of now be placed under the Clan Restoration Act and must find at least 3 wives by the age of 20, or else the council will assign the proper number of spouses. Well, if that is all for the night, then we will meet again next week for the weekly meeting. But before we adjourn, is there any other issues that need to be addressed? Asked Sarutobi. No one spoke. This meeting is adjourned. Hiruzen then called his former student over to himself. Jiraiya, if you would relay to Naruto the results of this meeting, that would be great. Jiraiya frowned. Sure, sensei. You know he is not going to take this well, right? Hiruzen nodded. Yes, I am aware. At least you can tell him we tried to prevent it. Hell, we found a loophole that at least kept him from loveless marriages for an amount of time. Well, sensei, I guess I have to go break the news to him. I will see you tomorrow, Jiraiya said before he left in a swirl of leaves. Naruto's room, 11 p.m. That night, Naruto opened the door to his room and stormed in with an angry expression on his face. He then promptly slammed the door and screamed, "Fuck the council. Who did they think they were? Forcing him into multiple marriages, my ass? Now who would want to be with him?" The fact that he was hated by most of the village would deter a good number of girls, but now they had to share? Yeah, that is not what he wanted to hear. He was brought from his thoughts by a slight pulse in his mind. Naomi must need him for something. He then opened the link between the two. You need something, Naomi-chan? Come into your mindscape. I want to talk to you about something, she said as she cut the link. Naruto shrugged and fell back onto his bed. He shut his eyes for the night. Naruto's mindscape. Naruto appeared in the woodland area that was his mindscape. A year or two into his mindscape, his Kachan and Naomi said that he should change it up from the sewer or the white room, so he did this. He walked over to the small hut that Naomi lived in. He knocked on the door. Naomi-chan, you decent? He remembered the last time he walked in without knocking. Cue nosebleed. He shook his head to clear those thoughts. Come on in, he heard from inside. He went in and saw Naomi sitting on the couch in front of a small end table. She patted the seat next to her, looking nervous. Naruto frowned. Naomi-chan, what's wrong? The queen of Bijus sighed. Naruto-kun, I need to talk to you about something. What is it? You know you can talk to me about anything, right? Naomi nodded. I know, I just don't know how you're going to take what I have to say, she said, looking down. Now Naruto may be dense, but he can understand being nervous about something. He grabbed her chin lightly with his thumb and pointer finger and lifted her face up to meet his eyes. When she looked at him, she saw a soft smile on his face. Naomi-chan, you have been my best friend for years. You can tell me anything. I'm sure what you have to say won't change anything between us. The Bijou frowned. That's not exactly what she wanted to hear. That's actually what I wanted to talk to you about. Naruto-kun, what do you think of me? Naruto leaned back and tilted his head up in thought. Well, you have been the best friend I have ever had to this point. You have helped me get stronger. You have been patient with me while I was learning things. You heal me when I get hurt, and talking with you and being around you is fun. Why do you ask, Naomi-chan? Well, Naruto-kun, there are a couple of reasons. You know of my father, right? She got a nod. Well, he gave us each tasks on which area to protect. I was given Hai no Kuni, but when he gave me my area, he gave me a little prophecy or prediction about my future. And well, Hikindorf said it will have Imitian heal, but he's a Vioreft world, she said quickly. Could you repeat that a little slower, Naomi-chan? She nodded with a pink tinge on her face. He told me that I will have a mate in the future. That mate would become the savior of the world. Do you understand what that means, Naruto-kun? Not really. What does it mean, Baka? You are the savior of the world. Do you not remember the reason that you have been training for all these years? Oh, it took a second to process. Oh. Now I get it. So, I'm supposed to be your mate? Yes, Naruto-kun. It's you. And I am absolutely sure too. She looked down slightly again. I actually like you a lot, Naruto-kun. You are strong, kind, forgiving, funny, and handsome too. She looked back up at him and giggled a bit. You are a dense baka, but that is something that is part of you, and I wouldn't change it. She turned her head away a bit. So, I really like you, Naruto-kun, and I think, no, I'm sure that it is supposed to be you who becomes my mate. Do you feel the same at all? Naomi-chan, are you sure that is me? She nodded. Then I would definitely give the whole relationship thing a shot. I like so many things about you, Naomi-chan. I already told you what I think of you, and well, I meant every word of it. Other than Ka-chan, you are one of the best things that has happened to me. Despite what happened in the past, I am actually kind of glad that my Ka-san and Tu-san gave me the chance to be here with you. So I guess I really like you too. Naomi looked at him with tears in her eyes. I found him, Tu-san. She then tackled him back onto the floor. Thank you, Naruto-kun. He pushed her back off him for a moment and held her at the shoulders. Wait, Naomi-chan. What about the clan restoration bullshit? Do you still want for me to become your mate if you have to share me with other girls? Naomi looked at him with a small smile. Now that I have you, I'm not going to lose you. I don't want to share you, but I'm going to have to. You will be my mate if I have anything to say about it. It just means I have to claim you first, she said with a predatory smile. He nodded his head. Yeah, that makes sense. What? Lemon alert. If you are underage or just don't want to read it, then just skip down to the end. After the lemon is just an N. He looked over to her only to see her crawling toward him on all fours with the look of a hunter going after her prey. She did so until she was on top of him, her face over his. She then slowly leaned her face down to his. When she was about halfway down, Naruto stuttered out, "And Naomi-chan, what are you doing? I already told you, Naruto-kun. Now that I have you, I won't lose you. Now just comes to the point of claiming you first." She then closed the distance between their faces. Naruto was kind of lost for a moment. After all, he had never done this before. He then decided that it would be best to go along with it. He then started kissing back. They started to kiss more and more wildly as time went on. After about a minute, he felt a tongue prodding at his lower lip. Out of instinct, he opened his mouth a little bit and willed his tongue to meet Naomi's. When their tongues rubbed against each other, he was rewarded by a melodic moan from Naomi. He decided that it was good as well and deepened the kiss even further. They were now fighting for dominance in the kiss, and after about a minute, they separated for some air. "Wow," said Naruto with a grin as he put his forearms under himself and propped himself up. Naomi scoffed, reached down, unbuttoned and unzipped his pants. "If that gets you saying wow, then I wonder what I'm about to do next will have you speechless, Naruto." She then pulled off his ANBU-style pants and boxers. She then grabbed his flaccid member, eliciting a small gasp from the blonde. "Oh, not hard yet? Well, that won't do," she said while slowly stroking him. It didn't take long for little Naruto to get hard, standing at 7 inches. Much better. She then started to jack him off, getting a groan of approval. She leaned up to kiss him, still pumping. After kissing him chastely, she leaned up to his ear. "How is that, Naruto? Are you enjoying yourself?" She got a slight nod as her answer. Without another word, she slinked back down to his waist right in front of his member. She stopped stroking and grabbed the base. She then started licking up and down his shaft. After a few licks, she kissed tip and took his head into her mouth. She bobbed her head a few times and swirled her tongue over the tip, getting a moan from her new lover. After about a minute of Naomi blowing him, Naruto put his weight on one arm and reached one hand back behind her head. He couldn't take it anymore, so he pulled the back of her head closer to his body, forcing his cock all the way into her moist cavern. He then began thrusting a bit, hitting her gag reflex with each thrust. After another minute and a half of this, he felt his balls tighten. "Oh God. Naomi-chan, I'm coming." She gave him a small nod and he jammed his cock as far down her throat as he could, as his baby batter went rushing down Naomi's throat. Naomi greedily drank all of it as he continued to fill her stomach with his seed. After the cum stopped flowing, he pulled out of her mouth with a plop. "That was a delicious appetizer, but don't you think we should head to my bedroom and get to the main course?" she asked, wiping a tad bit of cum off of the corner of her mouth with her finger before licking it off sensually, making a show of it. Naruto, mesmerized at the erotic display, simply nodded as he stood up and took off his shirts and the rest of his clothes. Naomi gently grabbed his softening cock and led him to her bedroom by it. Once in there, she pulled down her kimono, which she wasn't wearing anything under, and stepped out of it. She walked over to her bed, sat down with her legs spread, and motioned for her to come over to her with a single finger and a seductive look. He obliged and walked over to her. Once he got there, he leaned down and laid a lick upon her dripping folds. "Naruto, please stop teasing and fuck me already," she moaned out. "I've been waiting centuries, just give it to me now and we can experiment with that later." Naruto got up and on top of her as he pushed her down onto her bed with a kiss. "As you wish, my queen," he said as he claimed her lips again while lining up his cock to her waiting nether lips. Naomi smirked. "Queen, huh? I could get used to you," she moaned out as he plunged his entire length into her at once. "She's a bijou, no need for a hymen." He then began thrusting in at a steady pace. After getting used to his size, Naomi began meeting his thrusts, and moaned each time their hips met. The longer they went on, the deeper he went, and the deeper he went, the more of a moaning mess Naomi became. Eventually he began to hit the back of her womb with each thrust. "Oh God! Faster, Naruto!" He did so, and for the next 10 minutes, the only sounds of the room were the moans of the two voors and the slapping of skin as the two met each other's thrusts. He began to speed up to his max speed as he began to reach his climax. "And Naomi-chan, I'm close," he grunted out. "Me too. Do it inside, Naruto," she moaned out. With a few last thrusts, he went especially deep, hitting her G-spot, triggering her orgasm. She clamped down on his shaft, which triggered his own release. As he gave one last thrust that hit her cervix, he began filling her womb with his hot seed. "Lemon over. You can come back out now, kiddies." After a few seconds of recovery, he pulled out and plopped down on the bed next to her. "That was amazing," he said as she snuggled up to him and laid her head on his chest. Naomi looked up at him. "Oh, you think that was good? Well, just wait until we find a way out of the seal. I bet real sex is better. Naruto closed his eyes and grinned as he pulled his new lover closer. Don't you worry, my Beneheim, I can ask Kachan if she knows a way to get you in and out of the seal. She smiled as she snuggled into him further. I can't wait, Koibito, lover. And with that said, the two drifted off to sleep for the rest of the night, their bodies melded together and dripping each other's essence. 2 days after the arrival to Konoha, Naruto and Pakura walked up the stairs past the Hokage's assistant to get their first official missions for Konoha. They spent most of yesterday lazing around and getting acquainted, or reacquainted for Naruto. As they made their way up to the Hokage's office, Naruto thought back to the interesting thing he found out last night. He found the way to get Naomi out of the seal. Flashback. As Naruto closed his eyes to sleep for the night, he appeared in the beg field next to the house that was his mindscape. He didn't go into the house where Naomi was yet, as he was waiting for his mother to arrive. She hadn't come by in 4 or 5 days, so he figured it would be tonight. No big deal if it wasn't, he would just ask her his questions the next time she showed up. She did run a universe and all. He sat there for about 5 minutes before he sensed a presence behind him. He turned around to find his mother smiling softly at him. He walked over and wrapped her up in a big hug. Hey, Ka-chan. She reciprocated the action and gave him a peck on the forehead. Hello to you as well, my little Naruto-chan. I'm not little anymore, he muttered under his breath as they released the hug. Naruto motioned for them to go inside the house that Naomi was in. As they started walking, Kami initiated conversation. How did you enjoy the village on your first day back in so long? He shrugged his shoulders. It was okay. I didn't get near as many glares. I think it's just because they don't recognize me, but I don't really care anymore. As long as I have a few people that I care about and they feel the same way, I'll be fine. As they opened the door to the small house, Kami noticed Naomi sleeping on the couch in a thin t-shirt and a pair of boxers, letting out soft snoring noises. Speaking of those that feel the same, I was on my way to visit last night. I walk in the front door, and I'm sure you can guess what I heard last night. Next time, put a sock on the front door or put a sign up. Do something. Naruto blushed. He would remember to do that next time. He shook his head as he sat down on the arm of the couch by Naomi's head. Speaking of last night, we thought of a question to ask you. Let me wake her up real quick. He placed his hand on her shoulder and shook it gently. She groaned and rolled over onto her side facing the couch. He shook her shoulder again. Same groan, but she stayed on her side. Naruto smirked. Fine, you don't want to wake up? He looked over at his mother. Be right back. Naruto walked over to the thermostat and turned it down to 50 degrees. After a minute, the room was pretty chilly and he held a rather large bottle of water in each hand. He tossed one to his mother and opened his. He put his bottle into position over her head and waited for his mother to get over to the couch. Ready, Ka-chan? He got a nod. All right. 3, 2, 1, now, he said as they poured the water all over the queen of the bijou. Naomi's eyes shot open and she let out a shriek as she jumped up off of the couch. Cold. Oh, Kami! Naruto and Kami died laughing at the sight. Hello to you too, Naomi-chan, the goddess said mid-laugh. Naomi was not amused. She sat there with her hands under her armpits, shivering. Tth, this W was your idea, you bastard, she said with a nasty glare directed toward her mate. Naruto gave her a grin as he sat down in a large recliner. Sorry, babe. You wouldn't wake up, so I did this, Naomi huffed. Whatever. Jay, just get me some dry, warm sea clothes. Come on, why me? The bijou gave him a deadpan look. It's your mindscape. You can do anything you fucking want with a thought. She shook her head. Savior of the world, and he doesn't know how to work his own mind. Naruto pouted. So mean, Naomi-chan. You'd think with me being the one to get you the clothes, you'd be nicer. He snapped his finger, and she was wearing her usual kimono. She looked over herself and nodded. She then walked over to Naruto in the recliner and plopped down sideways on his lap. Kami rolled her eyes from the chair across the couch she made her way to earlier. You two comfortable enough yet? 1 second. Naomi muttered. She moved around a bit and worked her head to her mate's shoulder. Naruto just wrapped his arms around her. What did you two want to ask me, Naruto-chan? We want to know how to get Naomi out of the seal. I have the key and could let her out, but we know that we only have her yang portion of her chakra. As you know, my father sealed the Yin and himself into the stomach of the Shinigami. We want to know how to get it out so I can release her. Kami thought about it for a moment. I know a way, but I need to explain something to you first. Honestly, you couldn't fully release her any way you tried. For the last 16 years, her yukai, which is so much more potent than human chakra that it is dangerous to most humans, has been funneling into your chakra system. You see, your seal is designed to take her yukai and filter it into chakra to release it into your chakra system. Granted, it is extremely dense and powerful chakra, but it is chakra and it has been constantly funneling into your pathways. Due to this, your chakra system has gotten used to the potency and has adapted itself to be able to contain it. If you were to remove it completely, it would fry your chakra system, which I can almost guarantee would kill you. Even if you survived, you wouldn't be able to mold chakra and you wouldn't last long anyway. That being said, she can't ever come fully out of the seal. I have, however, found a way to get her out. There is a very rare type of bunshin that hasn't been used since the time of the Rakuta Sannin. This jutsu is called the Chishio Bunshin no Jutsu, blood clone technique. It is almost as durable as the human body and was created by the Rakuta Sannin himself when he was the Jinchuriki of the Jubi. He did so by cutting his hand and channeling the Yukai of the Jubi to his hand while trying to create a clone. He only used it a few times because the Jubi found a way to put its own consciousness into the clone when its Yukai was used. This is obviously the result we are looking for. I would guess that Naomi would have as much chakra in the body as you channeled her Yukai. The problem with this solution is that with this Naomi being only the yang, her Yukai would be unstable. I doubt she would be able to push her consciousness into the clone with her Yukai being unstable. You can try when you wake up, but I doubt it would work, especially since you can only handle 3 tails of chakra at the moment. And if you try, line the walls of your house with yokai suppressing seals so people don't think you are trying to destroy the village. This brings us to the issue of how to get Naomi's yin out of the Shinigami's stomach. And I will tell you right now that there is only one way to do this. Your seal, Naruchan, actually was an ancient Uzumaki design that summons the Shinigami to seal whatever they needed to as the ultimate Fuin Jutsu. Naturally, when you create something, you have a failsafe. There is a mask that resembles the face of the Shinigami himself, so brightly named the Shinigami's mask, somewhere among the possessions of the Uzumaki clan that can undo the jutsu. By wearing the mask and cutting yourself on your stomach you can release the souls, or in this case Naomi's yin half, and seal them in something else, or revive them by some means. And how would we get the yin half of Naomi-chan into the seal once we get her out of the Shinigami's stomach? Kami smirked. Don't worry, Naruchan. You'll have the way to do it soon enough via the last surprise that I will be giving you in the near future, so we need to find the Shinigami's mask. Do you know where it is? Kami tapped her chin in thought. That's not something that I keep track of. I rule over the things that have life, so I've never cared much about it. You could take a visit to the ruins of Yuzushiogakure to find out more about it. It might be there in a vault somewhere. Naruto nodded and filed that away in his mind for later on. Flashback end. Naruto did in fact try to make the Chishio Bunshin when he woke up earlier this morning. He made sure to line his room with the yokai suppression seals so the ANBU didn't show up. Turns out you need more than 3 tails to even make a Chishio Bunshin. He would just have to find a time where he could swing by Yuzu for a couple of days. It's not like it had to be done immediately, says the one not cooped up in the seal. Naruto chuckled as he walked up the stairs to the Hokage's office. Come on, babe. You know we couldn't do anything until I receive the last gift that Ka-chan gives me. I don't know what it is, much less when I'm getting it. Naruto cut the link as he and Pakura walked into the Sandame's office. They saw that Sarutobi was sitting at his desk, starting his morning paperwork as they walked in. Ah, Naruto-kun and Pakura-chan. Nice to see you two today. Did you enjoy getting used to the village yesterday? He got nods in response. Did you bring back the clan adoption papers that I gave you 2 days ago? Naruto reached for the seal on his wrist and channeled chakra. With a poof, a small stack of filled-out papers were resting in his hand. He walked up to the desk and set them on the desk. There you go, Gigi. Hiruzen picked them up and scanned through the 5 or so pages. He got his official seal and stamped the first page on the top right corner. It's official. You are from this point on, Uzumaki Pakura. I also give you clearance to move into the Namikaze compound. Naruto adopted a large grin. Awesome. Finally, my own place that the water will actually work. By the way, just call it the Uzumaki compound from now on. Nothing against my old man, but since I'm keeping my mom's name and becoming the clan head, it just seems right to call it Uzumaki. He nodded and set the papers in the completed stack and turned back to the 2 waiting shinobi. Very well. Now for your first missions as Konoha shinobi. I'm going to place you together in a team for most of the missions that you two take while Pakura-chan here is still under her probationary period. Today you will have a basic mission around the Tanzakagai area, he said as he handed Pakura a small dossier. This is a B-rank mission that includes taking out a bandit camp that is terrorizing one of the smaller villages that is about 10 miles from Tanzakagai. If the information we have is correct, then you will be eliminating mostly bandits. There are a few high Genin / low Chunin missing Nin from a couple villages including our own. They heard a knock at the door and the Hokage called for them to come in, knowing who it most likely was. In walked Kakashi with his Ika book in hand. He walked up by the other 2 in the room and looked up lazily. Sorry I'm so late, Hokage-sama. A black cat crossed a lady who was carrying her groceries, so I had to take the long way around and help her with all of her things. The Hokage smirked. Well, it's a good thing that I told you to be here 4 hours ago, because we actually just started the briefing. Kakashi's lone eye widened at how he had been played. Kyuso. You broke my streak. The Sandame just chuckled. Well, now that you're here, you can read the dossier that Pakura has. 'Cause I'm not going over that shit again. Kakashi nodded and read over the file he was handed. Now, started the Hokage once more. I know that I said Kakashi would oversee most of the missions that you two would be assigned, but this has changed. Kakashi, here, will be training a Genin team, so there isn't going to be many missions outside of the village for him. You two will be supervised by several other jounin. He lit his pipe and took a good drag. Now once Kakashi has finished, you should all head out. Good luck and see you when you return. 5 months later, outside Otafukagai, Naruto was walking back to his team's campsite with 2 Kage Bunshin, all carrying a heap of firewood in their arms. They were on their way back to the village after a somewhat simple B-rank escort mission. The team consisted of himself, Pakura, a Chunin named Oke and a Jounin named Shirakumo Hayama. The mission was actually one led by Pakura, being supervised by Hayama. It had been a fairly easy mission, only a few weaker shinobi that they had to fight off. Everyone was just tired and wanted to be home after a week of protecting their client. Naruto was stopped dead in his tracks when he smelled blood. Lots of it. He made a third Kage Bunshin to get to camp as fast as it could to alert the others as he went off to investigate. He followed the scent for about 200 yards, where he saw a cabin. The cabin was just a small cottage that was one large room. But that's not what was peculiar about the cabin. The cabin had about 6 bodies and a large dog lying dead around the door, and the outside walls were covered with blood. He quietly stalked around to the side and looked in through a window that was there. What he saw made him unconsciously channel some of Naomi's chakra. There was a woman inside on the edge of unconsciousness that had her hands and feet restrained, with her mouth gagged. She was beaten and bloodied with what clothes she had left on in rags. The bindings on her hands were tied up on an elevated notch on the wall across from the window he was looking in from. He tried his hardest to remain calm and wait for backup to come, in case something else was going on. He then saw a man walk from the side of the cabin the window was on toward the girl with a rather large knife in his right hand. The guy was a taller man with a muscular build with shoulder-length brown hair. He wore black pants and shirt with a slashed Iwagakure hitai tied around his left arm. He leered at the girl with a twisted smile as he made it over to her. He ran the flat edge of the knife along her jawline. Such a pretty girl. It's a shame you weren't very strong. I always love it when they fight back more, he said, giving an insane cackle and a small grope to her chest at the end of his statement. The man reached for her tattered flak jacket and cut it off with the large knife. Oh? Wearing chest bindings? Now that certainly won't do, he said as he started to cut them with his knife. She screamed into her gag as she tried twisting away from him. That was all Naruto could stand before he shattered the window and leaped in as the man made the cut to expose the woman's large bust. The IWA missing Nin jumped to the side so he could face the intruder, giving the kunoichi a slight cut under her armpit. The Nin immediately put the blade of the knife to her neck as he saw Naruto form a dog seal. I don't know who you are, but if you move even one muscle I will not hesitate to kill this bitch gurgle. That was all the man got out before Naruto shot out vacuum ball to the man's throat, killing him by drowning in his own blood. Futon, Shinkajoku, he muttered as he made his way over to the woman to untie her. He made it over to her, and she was about to scream again, but calmed down once she noticed the Konoha Hitai resting on his forehead. First he undid the gag on her mouth, getting a painful groan immediately after the cloth left her mouth. He then cut the bindings on her feet and then went to her hands. He unsealed the brown clock from a seal on his wrist as he put it around her. He picked her up bridal style and gently set her down on the small bed that was in one of the corners of the room. He then turned around and made 5 Kage Bunshin that he gave instructions to immediately find the others in his group. When he looked back over to the kunoichi, she was passed out on the bed. It was at this time he actually observed her features. She was about average height for a woman. She had blood-soaked brown hair and a shoulder blade-length ponytail, which was messed up due to her struggling earlier, and 2 thin bangs that framed her face. She had a normal face shape, and the only thing that was off were the fawn-like tattoos on her cheeks. Wait a minute! That's an Inuzuka trait. The girl on the bed is most likely from Konoha, he thought. You did see a large dog dead at the front of the house, he heard his lover say. You're right, I did. Send a Kage Bunshin outside to look over the corpses you saw outside when you first came up to the cabin. Good idea. Thanks, Naomi-chan. He did as his girlfriend said and waited for the Bunshin to dispel and for the backup to get to his position. Naruto's face gained a solemn expression when the Kage Bunshin popped. It turned out that out of the 8 figures outside, 4 of them and the dog were from Konoha. He felt another Kage Bunshin that was in the area dispel since it had found its team, and it would only be a few moments before they came into the cabin. He heard the door open and looked back to see his team walk through the front entrance. Pakura and Shirakumo went in to check on the girl while Naruto and Oke went to clean up the outside and identify the bodies. After looking through the shinobi's flak jackets where their ID was, they were able to identify all the leaf and missing Nin, including the girl who was alive. Turns out, she was the oldest daughter of the Inuzuka clan head, Inuzuka Hana. Pakura walks out of the cabin with a scroll containing the head of the IWA Nin and tosses it to her little brother. There's the missing Nin's head for the bounty. You killed him, so you get it. He was only a C rank anyway. Naruto nodded and sealed the scroll in the seal on his wrist. He turned back to Pakura. How about the Inuzuka chick? She gonna be alright? Pakura nodded lightly. If we can get her back to the village in a couple hours, then she'll be alright after a few weeks off. Naruto snapped his head over to her. Weeks? Naruto-kun, you don't realize that you saved her from being raped. She knew what was going to happen. I had to send Hayama-san out as it was because she freaked out when she saw him. I think she will be wary of men for a couple weeks until she's able to have some therapy sessions. Naruto looked around and thought. Well, this is going to be a bitch to get home. 3 out of the 4 on our team are guys. Pakura thought about it for a second. I can ask either Oke-san or Hayama-san if either of them know a sleep genjutsu. Turns out Oke knew one called Nyan Shuja no Jutsu, Temple of Nirvana technique. He showed Pakura the hand seals and thoroughly explained how to mold her chakra properly for the technique as well as how much to use. 5 minutes later, Pakura came out of the cabin carrying a knocked-out Inuzuka heiress bridal style. Naruto bit his thumb and slammed it on the ground. Kuchios no Jutsu, summoning technique. A large red toad appeared under Naruto. I don't see a battle here, Gaki. What have I told you about that? Naruto huffed in frustration. Why did Bunta always have to be so damn difficult about everything not related to drinking and or beating up on Ero-senin? Please, Bunta. We got a clan heiress who was almost raped and needs to be in a hospital ASAP. I won't call you again without having another sake party if you help us out this one time. Well, if I knew the circumstances I would have done it anyway, but I accept. What? You said you would do it anyway. You offered a sake party and I ain't gonna turn down an offer like that. Now just hop on and I'll get you to Konoha in no time. Hour later, Konoha. The ground quaked as the giant form of the chief toad landed in a training ground relatively close to the Konoha hospital. As everybody got off, he called out to his summoner. Naruto! Don't forget our sake party before you summon me again. He yelled out with a hearty laugh as he disappeared in a cloud of smoke the size of a large building. Naruto slumped his shoulder, crying anime tears at the declaration. Oke slapped him on the back and laughed at the dramatics. Come on, man. It's just a sake party. It can't be that bad. Can't hold your liquor or something? Naruto huffed and stood up as they waited for Hayama and Pakura to come out of the hospital so they could go and make their report. Do you know how much sake it takes to get a giant toad drunk? Oki shook his head no. A month's worth of missions is how much? I'm gonna be broke for weeks after this. He trailed off, sobbing quietly. A few weeks later, the Sandaime Hokage was having a pretty good day so far. He had finished his paperwork for the afternoon rather quickly due to the use of kage bunshins. He had eaten a great plate of sushi for lunch, and now he had time to read a few extra chapters of his precious Ika. He whipped out his book from the locked compartment of his desk and quickly flipped to the page where he left off. That was when Naruto burst through the window of the Hokage's office, shattering the closed window and showering the Hokage along with his whole office with minuscule shards of glass. Naruto shook all of the bits of glass he could out of his hair and off of his skin and turned to the aged Hokage. Gigi. What the fuck? Why'd you close your window when you summoned me? Hiruzen gave the resident Jinchuriki a deadpan look before he sighed and closed his book again. Naruto-kun, if I've told you once then I've told Jiraiya 1,000,000 times. Use the goddamn door. Naruto thought about it for a second. Aren't shinobi supposed to be all stealthy and shit? Why would I use the door when there is a perfectly good window? Sarutobi facepalmed and picked up a small file from the side of his desk. Just take the damn mission and leave. It's a solo mission in Nami no Kuni to back up Kakashi and his Genin team as they have a mission that the difficulty was lied about. You need to leave for as soon as possible. Naruto perked up at the mention of that particular country. Sounds good, Gigi. But I'm gonna need some time to myself right after this mission. Any particular reason for this? Questioned Hiruzen. Naruto nodded. Yeah. Nami no Kuni is really close to the ruins of Uzushiobikure, and you can guess what I want to do from there. Hiruzen nodded. Granted. After Team Kakashi is headed back to the village, you are allowed 4 days of leave to visit the ruins. Is that satisfactory? Naruto nodded. That gave him plenty of time to scour the ruins with Kage Bunshin. Alright then, you need to get off to Nami no Kuni to these coordinates immediately. Naruto nodded and disappeared in a swirl of leaves. He reappeared in the living room of the Uzumaki compound. He went up to his room to grab his mission scroll that contained all the things he needed for a month-long mission, sealing it into the seal on the underside of his right forearm. He also grabbed all the scrolls and kunai he was using to dissect the Hiraishin formula with, and sealed the materials into a seal on his opposite forearm. He had made decent progress trying to figure out the Jutsu Shiki for the formula. He just had to work out a proper formula that was attuned to his chakra. His father was some kind of genius, checking over his current attire for all the things he might want to look badass in for now and approved. Now he just had to tell Pakura that he was going to be gone for a little bit. He closed his eyes and stretched out his senses, finding that she was in the compound's training ground. He shined over to her position and found her meditating while sitting up against a tree. He smirked when he saw she hadn't noticed him yet. He walked over to her, got right in her ear and took a deep breath in, only to have that breath immediately exit his lungs due to a solid punch to the gut from a green-haired woman. Naruto coughed for a few seconds on the ground before he was able to mutter out a sentence. Mausomi Nechan, and here I was coming to see you to tell you that I'm going on a mission. Pakura gave him a too-sweet smile. How precious of you, Otsuto. And here I thought you were just about to scream in my ear. She reached her hand out and helped him up. So how long will this mission be? Naruto dusted off his ass and shrugged. I have no clue on how long the mission will last. The file I read said that the team was scheduled for 3 weeks to protect the bridge builder while he finished the bridge. If all it takes is to finish the bridge, then I can help out with Kage Bunshins and finish it in a week. But after the mission, I am going to the ruins of Uzushiobikure to look around. Pakura nodded. That last part sounds like it would be fun. I wish I could do it, but the Uzumaki were known for seals and would have placed them in the important spots so people like me couldn't get to them. Don't worry, Nei-chan, I'll bring you back something good, she nodded with a slight smirk. You missed my birthday a few weeks back, Naruto deadpanned. We have been over this a million times. Gigi sent me on a mission. Blame him, Nei-chan. He huffed, and straightened up. I better get going. I am supposed to leave ASAP to help out Kaka-sensei with protection from a couple low-level missing nin. He gave her a quick hug and a peck on the cheek before he disappeared in a swirl of leaves. To Zuna's house. The next night, Naruto strolled up to a large house that was sitting on the coordinate points he was given by the Hokage. It was a really big house for what he had seen in the town before he had gone through. The town was filled with people on the streets, and the people that looked like they had somewhere to go didn't look much better. He could tell that they were living in extreme poverty. Now he knew why Kakashi continued the mission. These people needed help. Badly. Shaking the thoughts out of his head, he knocked on the door and waited for someone to answer. When the door partially opened, he was greeted by the face of a beautiful black-haired woman who looked to be about 25 or so. Hello, can I help you? She asked. Yeah? Is this where a silver-haired man named Kakashi and a bridge builder named Tazuna are staying? Slight signs of panic showed on her face before she quickly schooled her features. I'm sorry, who? Naruto lightly smiled at catching her short expressions a second ago. Don't worry, ma'am, he said as he pulled down his hataite to show the leaf insignia. I'm a leaf shinobi and the backup that Kakashi-sensei called for. Relief was evident on her face. Oh, thank Kami. I thought Gato sent another thug for Tusan. She opened the door all the way and made a gesture for him to come inside. Please come in. We had a bit of stew left over from dinner if you are hungry. I really appreciate it, but I have eaten dinner already. If you could just show me to Kakashi, I can be briefed on the situation and get out of your hair, he replied as he walked into the house. Tsunami nodded as they went toward a small set of stairs leading to the rooms. Are you not going to stay here with the rest of Kakashi's team? Well, there is already 4 of them and your family. I wouldn't want to impose. Oh, no, you must stay here. There aren't many open places to stay in town, and we have plenty of room. I am Uzumaki Naruto, and if you have the room, then I guess I can stay here, she nodded with a smile. Good. I am Tsunami, Tazuna's daughter. They arrived at the door room she said Kakashi and his 3 genin were in at the moment, and left him to whatever he would be doing. Naruto knocked on the door, and this time, it was answered by a pink-haired girl that looked to be about his age. Who are you? Naruto showed her his hataite. If you are a part of the team to protect Tazuna, then I am your backup. Is Kakashi-sensei in there? She looked wary of him but nodded. She let him in and he walked over to his old sensei, who was passed out on a futon in a corner of the room. He checked over his sensei's condition and sighed. He looked around the room and found 2 more boys, both with black hair and leaf hataite, in the room. The extremely pale one was writing or drawing something on a small notepad, while the one with the oddly duckish hairstyle was simply sitting there munching on a tomato. He turned back to the girl of the group. Did he really struggle this badly with 2 C-rank missing nin to the point he's passed out with chakra exhaustion? The girl got really angry at his question. What the hell do you know? Sasuke-kun was the one to save us from the demon brothers. Kakashi-sensei got tired when we faced Momochi Zabuza. Naruto's eyes widened. Momochi Zabuza, she nodded, like the wrapped-up guy with a big-ass sword on his back? Another nod. Well shit. He looked over at the passed-out Jounin and then turned back to the girl. How long has he been out? He said he was going to rest until he recovered all his chakra. Naruto's brow furrowed. Like hell he is. Chakra reserves don't take that long to recover. He'll just be tired and groggy for a couple of days. He walked over to Kakashi. Wake up, you lazy bastard. You gotta brief me on the situation. Snore. Fine. He pulled Kakashi's blanket off from the bed and reached for the pocket where the Jounin kept his infamous orange book. As his hand was about to touch the pouch, Kakashi's hand grabbed his wrist, and he heard what sounded like a low hiss of "my precious." Naruto smiled and retracted his hand. Good to see you up, Kaka-sensei. Now can you explain to me what's going on? Kakashi sighed and explained to Naruto what happened and how the Kiri Hunter Nin took away Zabuza's body. Naruto scratched his chin in thought. So you know Zabuza's alive, right? This got the 3 genin who were listening to the conversation to gasp. It only made them feel worse when Kakashi nodded. So what are your plans now that I have showed up? I'm gonna do some extra teaching for the genin, and you're going to help me. Okay, well, what jutsu are we teaching them? Asked the blonde. We aren't teaching them jutsu yet. Huh, they will be learning tree climbing, the Jounin said with an eye smile. Are you serious, Kaka-sensei? You haven't taught them that yet? And you've had this team for a few months. Jiraiya-sama released his new book the day after I was assigned the team, so, Jesus Christ. I'm going to bed and we can figure out what we are doing in the morning, said the exasperated blonde. See ya in the morning and get ready for tomorrow. Wait, who? Clearing near Tazuna's house, midday. Naruto was having a pretty good day so far. Not much production from his part, unless you count all the clones he sent to the bridge with Tazuna, that is. No, the reason it has been a good day so far would be his level of amusement. Instructing these genin on how to climb trees with their chakra was gold. It has been a little over an hour into the training and none of them had gotten it. The pink-haired girl, Sakura her name was, had gotten pretty far and would get there in the next few minutes. The pale one, Sai, had not gotten all that far, but it really didn't look like he was struggling. Just giving up about halfway up. He would talk to Kakashi-sensei about this kid later, but the best one was the Uchiha. He could only get about a third of the way up the tree before he added too much chakra and burst off the tree. The man who thought he was the king of the village was doing worse than himself when he had learned it. He was having trouble because of his larger than most genin reserves, but the real thing that was holding him back was his anger. The more he tried and didn't get it, the angrier he got. The angrier he got, the more chakra he would pump into his feet. It was hilarious to watch him oh so gracefully land flat on his back time and time again. Maybe he should give the kid a couple more tips on how to do it better. Nah, I did it. Naruto looked up to the tree where Sakura was training. There she was sitting on the top branch with a smile that was almost as wide as her giant forehead. Almost. He glanced over to the other two to see their reactions. Sai didn't look like anything had changed. Just that same blank look that he has had on his face the whole time he has been around the Genin team. Sasuke, though, was visibly seething. His face was red with anger, and was that steam coming out of his ears? Either way, he was pissed that this fangirl who didn't know any jutsu other than the 3 academy prerequisites had completed this exercise before he had gotten even as far halfway. What do I do next? He heard her say, snapping him out of his thoughts. Well, I hate to tell you to keep doing it, but just kidding, I don't have any problems with that. You need to keep doing this until your teammates finish or you run out of chakra completely. The Jinchuriki replied. Sakura gaped in shock. Why? I finished the exercise like you told me to. Shouldn't I get a break? Naruto sighed at her attitude. No. Sorry to burst your bubble, but the only reason that you finished this task so fast was because it is a chakra control exercise. This is easy for someone like you because you don't have the reserves of a shinobi or even a decent academy student. I'm guessing that you are from a civilian family? Sakura nodded with a down expression on her face. It was true. She is the first person in her family line to become a shinobi. Her mother had nearly shit her pants when she was informed that her only daughter wanted to join the academy to become a kunoichi. And you haven't worked on building or controlling your reserves at all, have you? Sakura looked up there. I did do the leaf-sticking exercise. Would you have done it unless you were asked in the academy? She shook her head and looked down. You know, you don't even look like you have tried to train your body at all either. You are way too thin for a shinobi and have virtually no muscle on your body. Thinking about it, even training your body to where it should be at this point in your career would boost your reserves a huge amount. Sakura was shrinking down from Naruto's gaze more and more as he talked. It was all true. She had never once gone out and worked on, well, anything that pertained to her career as a kunoichi. Instead, she had worked on dieting and trying to be desirable for Sasuke-kun. She was broken from her thoughts as the blonde started talking again. Instead of working on this exercise anymore, you will be working on your physical condition. Come here. She did so, and as she stood next to him, he unsealed a pair of seal tags and scribbled down some kanji on them. What are you doing? Naruto glanced up and back down as he went back to making the seals. I'm making weight seals. I'm going to put these seals on your arms, legs, and torso to work out your body while I have you run laps. This will bring up your reserves by balancing out your yin and yang balance. You have a lot of yin chakra circulating because of your intelligence, but you have almost no yang chakra. Balancing it out will help boost your reserves, as well as build on the good control you already have. He attached the seals to each of her limbs and in her stomach. That should do it. You see the clearing we are in now? She nodded. I want you to just start running around it. Just go and do it until I say stop. It will suck for you, but even by the end of the day you will be so much better off than you were at the beginning today. So with that, the rosette took to running slow laps around the clearing while Naruto walked back over to the tree he had been sitting against all morning.